This is the One Up Network. Welcome to the One Up Yours podcast for Friday, February the 16th. This is Garnet Lee. I'm going to start it out with a little apology for you guys. I know there was a lot of disappointment. We didn't get the dice segment in. Shane is here.
I'm sick, though, so if I cough, sneeze, or expectorate under the mic, you're warned.
You have the... Wait a minute. That's not even real chloroseptic. That's like Vicks 44, I look like chloroseptic shit.
It gets the job done.
Anyway, whatever. Luke's now here also was in Vegas.
I'm back. Yep. I'm all swingers out.
You sort of did like the Jay-Z there. I'm back.
Yeah, I am back.
Right? Rock and roll. And John, of course, here with us.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
You never left. You've been here all the
I've been
time.
here the whole time.
All right, so we have an excellent show ready for you today. The second segment, of course, is going to be very large. Along with doing the dice roundup, we've got... I had to include these. Did either of you guys get to go to the 10th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards?
Actually, yeah, and I have a lot to talk about.
I was there as well.
All right, so that's a little deal. Jay Moore hosts.
Hilarious.
Not so much.
No, actually hilarious.
No,
Dude,
actually, fully not.
you're completely wrong.
Really?
Actually,
Did
totally.
he go blue this year again?
We'll talk about it.
I don't know. I saw Jay Moore in Tempe when I used to live in Phoenix, and he was freaking hilarious.
Not enough fucking suck jokes.
All right,
There were quite a few.
Just not enough.
Anyway,
All right, and then we'll also use that as a springboard to start maybe talking about what we're going to do at GDC. Luke's been planning GDC all this
With
week, so
Shane, Kathleen, you, and I have all been meeting and talking and talking and meeting and talking and praying.
I'll give credit where it's due, though, dude. You're definitely taking the bull by horns. Appreciate it. Doing really good stuff there. And then, of course, in the third break, we have news. I see you have a long lineup of news here ready to go for us.
Yeah, there's a cavalcade of news.
A cavalcade.
a lot going on.
There's a lot. Isn't this supposed to be the slow time of the year?
El Luco, would you say we have a plethora of news?
I would say a plethora.
Fantastic. So I guess it's time to get into what you've been playing. I don't know. Shane, what have you been playing?
Well, all three of us have been playing MotorStorm, and we're kind of different minds about it. I don't know how much we can go,
God.
into it.
Hold on. Here comes the Defense Force.
Well, I'm the MotorStorm Defense Force. Yes, I guess I am, because I think it's a really amazingly fun game, especially online. Like, I love it online. I think it's incredibly fun to play online.
Well, that's a wrong spot to start, because John and I both loved it online, too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we all agree.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about online is it's virtually lag-free. I experienced almost...
It's free.
So Shane...
No, lag-free.
Oh, it's free, though.
Lag-free. You know why? It's
Free of many things.
It's free.
So Shane, how awesome is your game?
Well, let me tell you how awesome it is. There's no lag when you're playing online because Sony hosts it on dedicated servers. So, much like Resistance, you get like a really streamlined, smooth...
I thought it was peer-to-peer. No, it's not a dedicated server. It's peer-to-peer because you have to set yourself up as a host.
I heard that it's hosting your game on a dedicated server.
Really?
That's why there's only 256 people on each server.
Well, to the credit, I mean, whether it is a dedicated server or not, we'll have to figure out. But the hosting function, you are right. But
Yeah.
you would have to have a designated host on a designated server to choose game types, right? Because there are game types.
There are. Well, no, well, you modify like what's available in each game. But when you
Right.
go online, what's cool about it is the whole game opens up. Whereas when you're playing a single player, there's a lot of restrictions as to what vehicles you can use.
Yeah,
in what events. Whereas online, you can kind of like customize it. Time of day, the weather, all that stuff.
Regular player, Garnet, you're not feeling it?
Regular player definitely not feeling. It's too bad that online is the game it should have been, or at least the game it should have been for that environment, plus the other environments they should have had in the game.
Well, is this the shooter situation? I mean, are we looking at a game where it's like the game is clearly going to be the most enjoyable online, so instead the single player game, which is you're saying is lacking? I mean, there are shooters that are like that too, where the online experience is what drives the
Halo
shooting.
2?
I'm not going to actually go there.
No, but the single player game is, it isn't as deep and broad as you might expect, but it has amazing AI. Like, the AI is incredibly aggressive, and from the outset, you'll be amazed by how difficult the game is. And you can't play this like you would a normal racer. You really have to play aggressively.
Really?
Really. And the AI...
From the outset?
Yes, from the outset.
Wow, he must really suck at this game.
Oh, no. Whose dad can beat up whose dad on the playground?
I think, the one thing, MotorStorm 2 is going to be awesome.
I can totally throw myself behind that. That's I agree with.
You know what this reminds me of, John? It reminds me of the first time I played Burnout. When Burnout first came to our office, you were there. It was about 5 years ago, and no one would even look at the demo because it was an Acclaim game. And I was like, no, this looks kind of cool. And I was playing it, and I remember you and Milky coming by. I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty good. And it didn't have all the modes that Burnout Revenge had, but that didn't make Burnout a bad game.
See, I think that's actually a really good comparison because it was about Burnout 3 where the series really got good. That's where it got its legs.
Right? Yeah. There's no denying. I think MotorStorm is one of the most exhilarating, particularly in the first-person mode. I think it's a little it gets a little old in single player.
Dude, talk about how the way you were playing it, because I thought that was really cool. I hadn't thought about playing it the way you were, but that was cool.
The camera?
Yeah, it was switching back and forth.
Well, because the first-person camera is about where your eye would be in the vehicle. So in stuff like the buggies and the trucks, I prefer playing in first person because it feels a lot faster.
Same
there's a
here.
lot of the stuff that it does with the particles where it's like throwing up mud that in third person it doesn't make any sense. Because it's like it's throwing it up on the camera, dangling from the helicopter behind you. Whereas in first person, it's obscuring your vision and it's part of the gameplay.
Yeah, it's a much more dynamic experience.
But there's a lot of there's 8 tracks altogether, and a couple of them have some crazy jumps in it. And in first person, you just end up looking at the sky and then like slamming down. So you have to use the camera because you can. It's not pretending to be a sim of any kind.
It's incredibly arcadey.
It's very arcadey. You can like tilt and orient the car in midair. So you need to pop it out to third person and sort of position it for the land, and then gun it for when you land. And so it's got a lot of. It's like a weird hybrid of almost Wipeout and ATV. It's kind of a weird combo.
There's a little bit of like Ridge Racer in it too, just because you're boosting.
Come on, let's just go ahead and call it Star Wars Episode 1 Racer.
Well, it is kind of like pod racing in a way.
Yeah,
you're
very much like
really
that.
quickly, but I just think it does one thing really, really, really well. And the complaints like you, like, oh, it doesn't have snow levels. No, it doesn't have like all these new modes that I expect from a game. But like, they had one.
Wait, I got it. It doesn't have all these new modes that I actually expect from a game.
I meant modes I expect from like an established racing franchise. If you go back and play
it's good to know that he expects them too.
Well, I expect them in the sequel. I don't expect a first game in a series to have every possible mode I could believe. I mean,
I think that we're coming into a discussion though where we're talking about like there's an expectation that's associated with a game that's going to be a racing game or a game that's going to appear online. It's an expectation in general that like there's a certain number of criteria that the game should have regardless of what level of entry it is into the franchise. These are conventions that are being used and are like occurring in other games. Like there's a certain level of expectation where stuff has to be there.
Right, but the point was, well, okay, we could have had all these other modes, but would we have had a game that looks like this, that plays like this? Maybe not. And it's like, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Well, what we have is the best looking, most fun off-road racing game I've ever played. And I'm not about to like discount that just because it doesn't have the time trial mode that Garnet wants or whatever.
Wait.
Garnet wants ghosts like Mario Kart.
But no, I think MotorStorm is like a watershed landmark title that's going to really impress a lot of people.
Come on.
I really do.
Christ on a bike. Jesus, he's like, you're so
I don't care what
Put that quote on the box.
Seriously.
It's a watershed title.
Out of the pure graphics and gameplay, I'd be playing this game and I come back to the next day and be like, I can't believe how good this is. I can't believe how fun it is, how addicted I am to it. Playing online, it really is fun. It's really beautiful. So fuck the haters. I'm not.
Dude, I'm not hating on it. I'll give you this.
Hating on it. I mean,
the online is a blast.
We're just critical of the fact that it's almost like you can tell what its roots were in that
it's a next-gen game with PS1 functionality.
No, that it was a tech demo.
I think it was initially let's see what we can do with the PS3, and it was such a good demo that let's turn it into a game. And I think it's quite telling that the bit they bolted on between the Japanese and the US release is the best part. The bit where they actually got a bit of extra time to turn it into more of a game, because it's very. There's 8 tracks that it slowly unlocks using this ticket system. So you have events that are divided into blocks of 4, and every track has multiple routes through it. So if you've played the demo, you can see this. But that's
key to the gameplay.
And it's key to the gameplay.
That's what it's all about.
The way, rather than letting you drop any car on any track and in any situation, it forces you to race these races with different vehicles, and it forces you to learn the track. So it's like if you're on a motorcycle, you have to go up to the right and over the rocky stuff, and if you're in the big truck, you go through the mud. The problem with that pacing is that after a while, as it's scaling the difficulty by making the AI more and more psychotic, is that you're like, how many times do I have to race this fucking track?
Well, exactly. So that's the problem. Is they're trying to disguise.
I agree that they stretch out like a small amount of content too far. Like there's 4 different classes of races, and I'm probably not going to get to the 4th ones. I got to the 3rd ones like really hard, and like at this point, I'd rather play online.
And I think that was his biggest flaw. That if I'm not online, you can't play it necessarily the way that you would want to, which is like, okay, I think I've earned the respect of the game now. Now let me do what I want with it.
Right.
But it's like, no, now we're going to put you in a completely unreasonable gameplay situation where you're on this like ATV that like flips over, or if anything bangs into it, it explodes, and we're going to send the biggest, meanest, ugliest big trucks after you that are going to land. And it gets to a point where you're like, I think I've about exhausted my fun out of it. Because like for the first 3-4 hours,
player.
I was, the way you were expressing it, I was like, oh my God, this is I thought they changed it dramatically from the Japanese version. I don't think they have. I think I just got into it.
They did smooth out some of the slowdown that I witnessed.
But I found that I remember playing it for the first time with the Japanese release and thinking, this is really fucking hard. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stick with this.
I think they definitely altered the difficulty, but what happens is that around level 3, which is where you stopped, right?
Yeah.
And I got to the end of level 3.
Level 3 is a lot of races to get to level 3. It's like
it's a huge
that's like the
number of races.
Set of races.
And I found the problem with what happened at level 3 was that instead of the difficulty improving the competition, it was the difficulty improving the laser homing of everybody out to kill you. It's like the
AI is insanely aggressive.
The big rigs become big rig death squads, just aiming to get you, and they do it exactly like what John's talking about. They put you in like an ATV, and then the rest of the field is fucking big rigs and trucks.
But you know what about this game? Between this and Virtua Fighter, I feel completely differently about the PS3 now.
I agree with that, definitely.
It's like I'm definitely warming, and it's what happens with any platform. As there's 2 or 3 games that you start to want to play, you start to feel a little more affectionate towards the platform and to the system.
You start to
and
feel like you've justified your investment.
Yeah, so like MotorStorm is definitely. I mean, I've played those 2 games more than anything else on PS3, and I'm definitely going to play it online when it comes out. I think it could have legs, and I think as a franchise, this is a new first-party franchise that will sit alongside, things with legs like Wipeout, Twisted Metal. I think if they nail this right and they add to what they've done, they've got a new, strong first-party franchise that'll last the entire generation.
Let me say, because I haven't gotten to this point before we move on to Virtua Fighter, the reason that I think they got MotorStorm right is that the handling model really works. I mean, that was the part that really, for me, has to be nailed.
There's so much variety. I mean, I don't like all the crafts equally. I'd much rather play the bikes, the ATVs, and the buggies than...
Really? See, so that's the perfection of it, is because they really differentiated between them. They have different...
There's a lot going on there.
I like the buggies, and I like the racing trucks, and I like the mud pluggers.
Too. I haven't really...
The mud pluggers?
That's called mud pluggers, man.
I think I've seen one of those movies.
Okay, but whatever.
In addition to MotorStorm, I've also been playing some other stuff that's a little more alternative, including I finally got a copy of Card Fighters Clash 2 in English for DS.
Nice.
And Card Fighters Clash was my favorite Neo Geo Pocket game ever. I really love that game. And I've only scratched the surface of this. The style is a little different. I'm not sure if it's going to be quite as good. We only have 1 copy, which sucks since it's really a multiplayer game. But I'm going to keep playing that this weekend. But
you still have your Neo Geo Pocket. I can bring mine in if you want to play some Card Fighters.
I need 1 card. I have 249 cards out of 250. Anyway... But the other game I got today is Super Paper Mario, and that's my weekend. I already played the first...
You got that today?
I played the first 2 levels.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Message boards are exploding right now. How is it?
It's good.
All right, so we had this argument in the elevator the other day. Have you found out, has it gone more platformery?
So
platformery.
I don't know if they'll kill us for this.
I want to know if there's tacticality to the platformery.
Let me tell you what happens.
If
Nintendo kills us, I signed like a special piece of paper saying I wouldn't spoil lots of things about this game.
All right, so don't spoil anything. Just talk about.
So yeah, it starts out like a regular Paper Mario. There's like a town. You're talking to people. There's a shop. There's an inn. It's very much an RPG. You're like, okay, this is like an RPG. But then when you go to the stages, it's stage 1, 1, 2, and it's platforming. It's straight up. You're like jumping on Goombas. You're jumping on Koopas. You're doing that kind of stuff. However, you don't start with the moves that you think you have. Like, why can't I run? Why can't I pick up turtle shells? You have to learn that stuff. You get these little pixel guys who give you new abilities, and
kind of classic adventure game style.
And one of the first ones you get is the ability to change the level from 3D to 2D, which is like the whole gameplay. You're doing that all the time, and it's really clever. Like, it's pretty amazing the things you do with that.
How did the
folks? He has a big smile on his face. Very big smile.
It's a Wiimote.
It does use the Wiimote. I mean, most of the time you're holding it horizontally and just jumping.
How is that holding that piece of the rectangular plastic horizontal?
Well, I just played all the way through Sonic and Secret Ring, so I'm very used to it. At first, it's a little weird if you're used to playing it, like a regular remote, but I'm kind of used to it now. But then you change it to the remote style, and you can zoom in on the screen and find secrets. You find secret doors, or you can like point on things and see what they do. And I think there are other ways to use the Wiimote later. Is
that functionality? Does that seem to you like tacked on, or does it seem because it is a game that was developed for the GameCube and then is being brought to the Wii?
It reminds me of Twilight Princess in that it works, and it's it's a handy way of getting around the screen. But
it's not.
The game could have obviously happened without it. Yeah, right. I mean. But the graphics look very clean. The music was a bunch of cool remixes so far.
I saw Shane playing it earlier. The FMV that opens the game, Mario's never done that. But with Bowser just fucking Princess Peach, like that was like
what?
Fucking intense. There's some like reptile rape at the beginning of the game. It's insane.
No, not so much.
Have spikes on it.
Fully.
Tentacles for the win.
Tentacle hentai? Is that the term?
Don't pretend you don't know.
So
Guilty.
that's what I've been playing.
Well, you just incited mass jealousy.
I mean, like, where can you really go? Like, Shane's playing Super Paper Mario, which a shit ton, or like the same 15 million people who buy Nintendo consoles are really excited to buy in April. Like, I've been playing God of War 1.
Late to the party. I think the party ended, dude.
Yeah, the party is over.
Everyone else is playing God of War 2 here.
Yeah, everyone at the office is playing God of War 2. I'm playing God of War 1 as like my own sort of personal crusade, and I talked with John about it earlier this week. God of War, I played in April of 2005. My memory card reminded me when I turned on my PS2 and went to my God of War save, and I stopped after like 45 minutes because I was like, oh, God of War, this is fun. Like, I beat a boss, I got to the second stage. I was like, oh, this is fun, I get it. And then I just stopped playing it. I was like, yeah, I get it, it's fun. It's a good game. It's, you know, it's like Ninja Gaiden, but with a naked dude, you know, and some more mashing. And so I stopped playing completely. And then I realized that, like, since I put down God of War after like 45 minutes, I've done that same, like, oh, I get it, with so many games that I like. And what made me realize that I'd been doing this was playing Crackdown, which I've beaten the shit out of. Like, I have like a stupid amount of achievements.
What would you give it?
That's not bad. 17 minutes before the first Crackdown mention.
I have like 31 achievements out of like the 43 or something.
Holy shit, you really moved ahead.
Yeah, I have a ton of the achievements, and it's the game like Crackdown I've been playing, you know, pretty nonstop for the most part when I get home from work. And but that was a game that I liked and just stuck with, and I was like, wow, I'm like getting a lot out of this game. I wonder if I could get more out of other games if I liked them and like kept playing them when I liked them, rather than being like, oh yeah, I get it, I'll play something else, that like something that maybe I won't like as much, something that will, you know, make me a little cranky or something. Like, I realized that like
you realize that if you
I've been killing my own love of the hobby by being like, yeah, it's good, I get it, and then being like, I want to go suffer through another couple hours of Shadow of the Colossus.
You know, it's funny you said that, because that's exactly what I was talking about finishing games and not being jaded. Is when you finish games, you actually get through the whole thing and you get that, like, you know, that satisfaction. Yeah, you get that satisfaction.
So I'm gonna beat God of War, and then
are you really gonna beat it? Though?
Yeah, I'm gonna. I was playing it last night. Actually,
not that long. So
it's only a friend of mine beat it in like 8 hours.
Right, the new one's like twice the size, right?
I think so.
You've not played it though, John, right?
I have never played God of War.
So I can kind of stand behind you on this one too. Is I played God of War about, I don't know, I got past
It's probably the very top of my pile of shame. Except, no, actually it's not, because Psychonauts is actually on the top of my pile of shame. God of War is the next one down.
Oh no, we reopened that wound. Oh no. Okay. Oh no. Anyway,
it runs on 360 now. We don't have any excuses.
It's true. Yeah, we really don't have any excuses. The thing with God of War for me was that I kept thinking, you know what? I'd rather be playing Dante. I mean,
what's wrong with Kratos?
See, I've never felt like playing as Dante ever.
Dude, Devil May Cry to me has so much more personality and style. I mean, I literally never get sick of the first thing that I did at the E3 demo years ago, which was take the sword, flip it, shoot someone up in the air, and like blow them up with the handguns. That never got old to me. That never got. The style of it, the character design. I just think that
I agree to a point. I think Kratos is a good character, but I think that some of the enemies in God of War turned me off initially because they look a little too like cartoony or crazy. Like the Medusas, when I first saw them, like, oh, these don't look cool. They look like too stylized for me. But God of War is a great game. But
so, what's your impression of God of War? You just we cut you off. What was your impression of God of War that you started into it?
Well, I was in high school. Like, I had a great mythology teacher, so I got really into like Greek mythology. So the game resonates, and I'm enjoying that part of the game. I'm enjoying like fighting different like it's like a mythological Marvel Ultimate Alliance sort of, where you've got like all these different bad guys from the Greek mythological universe and these different gods talking to you along the way. That's what I mean.
That's kind of cool.
In terms of that, the music is awesome. I love the music. The animation, I actually think like the animation looks a little janky to me at times. Like, it's good, but it's not. I mean, it's not next gen. And then someone said that I can turn it to make it display in progressive scan, which I haven't done yet. Like Greg Ford or someone told me that.
Does one? I don't think that one has that functionality.
Turn on progressive scanning.
2 does.
Good impression.
I think.
Does 1 have that?
Did you just do a voice?
It was a good.
It was Greg Ford. Is my
do it again.
I mean, you can Luke. You can turn on progressive scan in God of War. I mean, you just have to. It's an options. You click on the options menu.
That's what Greg.
Not quite.
That's not really.
Keep working.
No, it's. I mean, it's a. The thing is, it's a bad Greg Ford, but it's like it's such a bad impression that you just remind people like, yeah, I'm Greg Ford.
Oh, okay.
Caricature voice.
It is.
It's caricature voice.
Well, I like your stunning decision to come out against God of War 1's animation as being not next gen. Really put yourself out there, Luke.
In fact, it was kind of mid previous gen. I think you'll find.
It was like yeah, but I mean, God of War 2. Everyone like Andrew's been playing it near my desk, and it looks amazing.
I've been playing.
I want to get to it.
I think the thing about God of War that caught people at the time was it was a Western game that had both the aesthetic and the production value of a really, really great polished Japanese action adventure game, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree. I think you can't name me one that does it better.
Wait, do you mean any Western game that does it better?
A Western game that apes Japanese action adventure games.
I'm not gonna fight with that.
Okay, but you know what? I'm gonna bring this around because this is something.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me tell you something I've been thinking about for like the past week since I started playing God of War 2, and I see and feel, and I don't know whether there's anybody who was like hired up from San Diego into Santa Monica to work on this or not, but I feel like some Mark of the Cree vibe in there, and
it's possible.
I get like some Mark of the Cree vibe, both in the way it's animated, in the kind of brutality that's there, and I'll just go on record. I mean, Mark of the Cree is like one of those games that I played and actually beat twice because I liked it so much. I loved Mark of the Cree.
Did you ever play the sequel that the name escapes me?
Rise of the Kasai.
That one.
You know what? I didn't because I know that the plan. I remember talking to the developers, and the whole plan was to make it co-op multiplayer, and then they had to like go in and patch in AI, and I know it became a disaster. So no, I didn't because I didn't want to ruin.
I don't think many people played that one.
No, they didn't, and that's why the series died. But that was such a great series, and I feel a lot of that same sort of that vibe comes through.
Didn't you come over to my desk last night and tell me you're at that point with God of War 2 already? Like you're over it?
Yeah, I did sort of. No, I didn't. I'm sort of at that point. I did come over and say that I played like 3 hours of God of War 2, and maybe it was just because I sat down and played 3 hours nonstop. But I'm like, okay, yeah, I've done this.
It's actually, well, jumping ahead, and there was a lot of chat on the board about the fact that the reviews hit so early on this thing. We should talk about that.
Well, it's funny
why that happened.
It's a Sony decision.
Well, actually, at DICE, it was funny. We were interviewing Corey Balrog, the producer of God of War 2. And
I mean, it's fine to call him Balrog. I did.
He gave me permission to call him Balrog, I think. And right when it was over, the PR guy, Ryan, was like, oh, yeah, the reviews are going up next week. And we're like, the game doesn't come out for a whole month. And he's like, oh, yeah, we're going to try to, get some positive buzz out there. And Corey's like, well, I hope they're good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope they're good, too. That would suck.
I think this was really stupid. It's like, I mean, they could have got a ton more coverage and built up some hype. And it's weird. When a review comes out this early, by the time the game comes out, I think a lot of people if people weren't going to buy it, once they've seen a review, I think there's a sort of collective assumption that it's out and it's great and it's awesome. So a month from now, it's going to be like, hey, God of War 2's out. And everyone's going to be like, what?
Yeah,
that's not out already.
How many people are going to stores this weekend looking to buy God of War?
Exactly.
Right.
I think it's misleading to put online. I mean, I understand sending it to print, but having everyone post now, isn't it kind of...
It's really strange. I mean, think about it.
Premature,
I've already thought about this as managing editor for the site and thinking, okay, well, wait a minute. Now, when the game comes back out, do I put the review back on the front page?
Yeah, you should, yeah.
We will, and we will, right. I had to think about that for a minute, and I said,
the insanity of this is we got this final code that was reviewable, and we kept going back to Sony and saying, are you sure you want us to review it now? And they're like, yeah, we decided we want to do that. And we say, but we could have got 2 or 3 more preview hits out of this, like some hands-on coverage and some chat. Can we... No, you can't use that code for hands-on preview. You can only use it for the review.
So, in other words, we can put the...
Can you send us some, like dumbed-down code so we can do another preview by Friday? I mean, it just didn't... It was just a really bizarre...
It was strange.
...way of rolling out a game that's that huge.
Luke still looks like just totally dazed.
Well, I mean, what if Corey and his team had gotten panned? Like, is this just huge balls on the part of Sony? Just putting them on the table, being like, this game's good.
It's getting great scores.
Yeah, it appears to be great.
Look, I think this is one of those cases where you see the game and right off the bat, this is a AAA title, and it's a AAA title that lives up to its reputation.
But don't you think getting the review out there early is indicative of the attitude towards PS2 right now? It's almost like, okay, just get it out early so we can focus on... Because in March, like when this game comes out, we're in PS3 like blockade. There's F1, MotorStorm. There's a bunch of other stuff coming from third parties right now. I mean, is the real reason?
Games probably.
It could have been a strategic move on their part.
Could it be just let's get God of War out of the way so we can focus on the PS3 stuff?
Well, I don't think that was what it was.
Which is contrary to Sony's whole vibe, in that PS2 is just as important.
When's MotorStorm out?
March 6th.
And those reviews are up.
No,
they're not.
No, and I think
those reviews are coming soon. I mean, we're going to be able to. I think that this was more a move by them to capture some hype.
Everything else is going to be the Monday of the week of release. This is the only first-party game.
I think what's really going on here is they wanted to sell more units to buyers. Actually,
Crackdown was a week early.
Crackdown was what they turned us loose on.
The whole Crackdown situation. I blogged about this as well, and there were a bunch of people saying that they bought Crackdown, and then Brian on Kotaku showed a copy of it,
which was awesome, with the orange stripe that says "Do not sell till February 20th." Put this
out, but they put code out, and they told us that
there
were a bunch of Microsoft know that stores have sold this thing because the number of people playing Crackdown on live is actually too much. What?
Crosstalk.
Oh.
Lots of talking over each other today. We need to simmer down now.
It's difficult. I have 2 hats to wear now.
I know. Well, I'm wearing this one.
They sent out a bunch of press copies, which were final code, which were out on the real live environment. But they know there were a lot more people playing than they'd sent copies out, so they knew that stores had broken the embargo. But the other thing was that sending the game out early is something that they don't normally do. I mean, normally, I don't think stores sit on the game for that long with a big sticker on it saying, "Please don't sell this for a week."
My copy of Halo 2 that I purchased the week before the game shipped had a sticker on it. Yeah. I was playing, I had before when I started here, I had someone on my friends list, and it was, I'm not going to say who it was, but it was someone who worked here, and it was their name, with a few changes to their letters. And I was like, "Oh, I played Halo 2 with you before that game shipped." And it was Matt Leone who I was playing with. I didn't play that game very much. I played it for a week.
I would be interested. You ever checked out 360 Voice? Isn't that the name of the website?
Thing that blogs?
The thing that blogs for you?
Yeah.
I wonder if they have Crackdown already, blogging, have 360s blogging about Crackdown. Be interesting to check that out.
To go back to the Sony thing really quick, I was thinking if they're shipping MotorStorm March 6th and they're talking about God of War and the reviews for God of War are going up now, do they not want to step on what they're going to talk about at GDC? Is this another thing that maybe you're sort of getting this burst of PR now? You're going to get a burst of PR on MotorStorm, and then when it's time for GDC, there's going to be another burst of information. They don't want all of this to intersect in
they have a lot coming done at the same time. I mean, that was how I got the cross up on Crackdown and MotorStorm. Was we got all that code in right at the same time, right? And it's interesting to see that they have these 2 AAA titles, but on 2 different platforms, but from the same company. I don't think I disagree, John. I don't think that they're discounting PS2. I think they know how valuable PS2 is. I genuinely think that they thought that getting the God of War 2 reviews out there, that they get a prolonged hit of, "Oh my God, this game is awesome, you have to have it," so that by the time it hits retail, people will be absolutely pumped and won't be able to refuse it.
I think it's to increase retail orders.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. Get retail interested in PS2 again.
Yeah, you have the Metascore out there 93, you're going to buy more copies.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
And let's not also overlook how much that'll influence the retailers, not just the audience, but the retailers. Now the Best Buys and the Walmarts, they're looking at that and they're like, "Wow, this game is scoring super high. We need to order thousands."
Didn't God of War sell over 2 million units?
Slowly.
Yeah, but
I'm sure it sold a lot.
I mean, I feel like retail orders were going to be pretty good.
But I think out of the gate this time, this one is going to sell 1 million out of the gate, whereas it took God of War over a year to sell 1 million copies.
So you mentioned how I kind of slowed down on it pretty quickly, which is true, and I fell into the same thing as I did before. I was really enjoying it at first, but then it just sort of became...
I think you'll be playing it this weekend, Gar.
I think I will be playing it this weekend. You know, one thing I really liked about it, I really like special attacks. I really love the animation system. I don't know. What do you think? You haven't played God of War. What do you think about the trade-off between the right stick for evade versus being able to actually move the camera at all?
I haven't played God of War 2.
I don't... That's something that's been taking me a while to get used to.
It's weird.
The fixed camera, because I just... It does take a little bit of getting used to.
I don't think you need camera control in that game. I think it's a smart decision to take it away from the player. As someone who's played a lot of 3D platformers, 3D action adventure games.
Have you been playing anything else, or is it John's turn, Garnet?
Let's see, I played some Supreme Commander, and we talked with Chris Taylor today. That was kind of fun. He's kind of a crazy dude, huh?
He's I talked with Chris last week at DICE for a little while, and we can get to all the DICE shit next segment. But
right.
Chris is in his own. He's on a plane.
Dude, he is in a zone.
He's a great guy. He's a super nice guy. And when Chris Taylor talks to you, he's like, I don't think he's looking into your soul. I think he's looking past you, trying to focus on whatever it is he's trying to tell you.
That's true.
Wow.
It's definitely true.
Deep. He wants it to be that way.
You had a transcendental experience with Chris Taylor.
There was no dental anything.
We had lunch today with him, and I'm telling you, he was definitely even for him on a different plane, don't you think?
Yeah, well, the thing too, that one of the things he's been riffing about, and he's going to talk about it at GDC, and he talked about it at DICE, is the way that Gas Powered's operating as a company. They're trying to sort of break the mold, and I wish that he was here to talk about it now. He's trying to break the mold of game design as far as having your designers and your creative people go home at 6:30, working only 9 to 6:30 or 10 to 6, and I was like, wow, this must be nice. And
I have no idea.
He's doing it because he's doing it for great reasons. He had a son 5 years ago, and when he had his kid, he was like, wow, I don't want to miss any of my kids' life. So he's like, I'm going to re-energize the company and do games this way, and it's admirable. And it'll be interesting to see if he's able to, convert other parts of the industry to that. I mean, Gas Power does it their way, and
to reinvigorate the creative juices, so the people aren't sitting there at their desks until 10 p.m., 11 p.m.
Like,
and getting burned out.
Yeah, I mean, I could have read the GDC stuff that I was here earlier the week. I could have done that from home, but
my only disagreement with that is this: it's a matter of passion, and so I think that much like game designers, I really love what I do, and when I'm at work late, I don't really know what time it is. I'm just doing it. I'm like in it. I'm loving it. I'm having a good time with it, and I don't really feel like I'm suffering that letdown because it's not grinding to me. It's not grinding at all. I'm like I want to fucking do this.
Well, it's not grinding. I don't feel like when I'm here late that it's grinding either. I mean, I poured cement. That's grinding. I've built 7-ton boulder walls in front of people's houses. That's grinding. Like sitting at my desk and reading about things at GDC. That's not grinding.
But would Supreme Commander been better had they worked around the clock?
No, it wouldn't have. No, actually, it wouldn't have. Supreme Commander.
Shane, don't act like you play PC games.
I heard that was a 7 out of 10. That's what I heard.
It's well.
Oh no!
I'm just saying what I heard.
Mm-hmm. Let's not talk about score. Let's just say that Supreme Commander is. I think that fans of Total Annihilation will love Supreme Commander because it is amazing in the amount of technical achievement it throws at you. I think I've kind of moved on in what I like because
you don't like RTSs anymore.
I like maybe not. I don't know.
Some of the criticism from people that haven't been impressed, particularly with the demo, because the reviews are all over the place. But if you look at the boards, particularly where the hardcore RTS guys that have played the multiplayer demo and now the single player demo, is that they just remade a really nice-looking version of Total Annihilation, which I played 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I kind of hit him on that today, and he was backing away from that about, what, no, we've done a lot more than that. And he actually said he said it to me and Luke, this is the best game that I've ever made. And it might well be the best game he's ever made. The technical accomplishment of it is amazing. The AI is incredible. And it's something that he talked about today that kind of...
I think a lot of people would argue that maybe Dungeon Siege was the best game he's ever made.
Oh, I don't know about that.
A lot of people really like that. And I think, but it's just it's difficult. It's a genre that people feel very passionately about. And because it hasn't moved very much, that people are very set in their ways and they have certain expectations. And when you add things they don't want and don't address things that they do want, it's very easy for the community to rail against you. And coming on the heels of Company of Heroes, which did a lot of things right.
That's the problem.
It brought it down to small squads. You weren't trying to rule the world and have, you can be fighting in 4 or 5 different places at once with ships, planes, and robots and all this. And
it's unearthly.
They recommend a dual screen setup. I mean, for Christ's sake.
That's intimidating.
Yeah, and if you're going to play on the big maps, you really need the dual screen setup. It's unreal.
Bullshit. That's a bunch of guys sitting around with wouldn't it be great if, and we have 2 screens here because the company, will supply us with 2 screens, but your average gamer is not doing that.
The mini map isn't actually a mini map. It's just another instance of the game screen that you can scroll all the way out or scroll all the way in. It's just stupid technology.
That's not taxing on your system at all.
It's crazy tech. I mean, they have built an amazing engine with amazing AI. None of it's pre-scripted. Like every single little projectile that it fires, down to the little bullet off a little tank, is all modeled. It's not pre-rendered. It's not deciding where it goes.
But
all that crap is
whatever.
You were right. You know what? You're right, because Company of Heroes changed the equation. Company of Heroes made it more intimate, made it much more engaging, made it much more personal, and that's a year and a half ago. This would have impressed me much more than it does now, because now I like that experience better. It's more personal.
Yeah.
I get into it more. So the other game that I played a lot of, we got to get ready.
We're still on you?
We're still, yeah. Well, you guys been playing this too, Virtua Fighter 5.
I played some Virtua Fighter 5, and then...
Oh, God.
And then,
I know what you're going to say.
No, don't say it, don't.
I played some Tekken.
Oh, God. Shane, look at Shane's eyes just got really wide.
I don't dislike Tekken.
I don't dislike Tekken, and I hope to God that they price it right. They haven't announced the pricing yet.
$14.95.
You think?
I loved Tekken 3, but man, Tekken 5.
No, Tekken 5 DR is definitely a return to form. It's no Tekken 4. I mean, Tekken 4 was the low point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tekken 5 DR is good. It isn't Virtua Fighter, but it's good.
Exactly right. It's not Virtua Fighter.
But not what is. You know?
So, by the way, both are on PS3, and I can get Virtua Fighter, so bye-bye Tekken.
But, to be fair, Tekken, third of the price.
Yeah. We have a disc. You want to borrow the disc? You can put it on your PS3. We have a disc.
For Tekken 3? For Tekken 5?
We have a disc.
Yeah, I don't want to play no Tekken 5. Dude, seriously, you know what? Tekken 3, I loved Tekken 3. I played Tekken 5 with Milky the other day. Whatever. Virtua Fighter 5, so much better.
When you see Milky playing Tekken 5, all he's doing is talking about VF.
Yeah.
That's all the whole time. It's just VF.
Dude, I'll be there too. Virtua Fighter, I'm really impressed with it.
Tekken is more accessible. I mean, I love Virtua Fighter. I think it's a better game, but Tekken is more accessible. It is.
It's more accessible.
That's noob-friendly.
It's very noob-friendly.
Here's the thing I like about Virtua Fighter that I'm finding is that it's just like the other Virtua Fighters, which is that it rewards the amount of effort that you put into it. In that, you start off playing it and you really can't play it. It does not let you play as someone who's not paying attention. The first level of paying attention, you can start getting through like one level of opponent, and then you pick up some more moves to your repertoire, and you can advance further in the game.
Like, there's no way someone starting out could beat like a first down opponent ever.
Right.
So here's how we ended up playing Tekken. You set it to single round matches. And you go in, you pick a character, and you blast your way through to the boss as fast as you possibly can. And when you're on a roll, you go straight through, and you can get to the boss in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then you're working through however many characters it has, 25, 30 characters. And this is the way people are going to play the single player. And I think after you've played Virtua Fighter, to go through what's essentially fighting grinding and actually removing gameplay for yourself just to blow through it, I think that shows a weakness in the design of it, particularly with it coming out at the same time. But I do think for whether it's $15 or $20, it's going to be in that ballpark. That for some people that have fond memories of Tekken 2, Tekken 3, it's a pretty...
Don't spoil them.
It's a pretty version of Tekken. It plays the same as Tekken 3. Tekken 4 was bad.
It's an excellent game for the download initiative. It really is. I'm glad it's not $60. I'm glad it's going to be cheaper.
Oh, God. If they put it out as a $60 game, it would get panned.
Okay, so maybe here's the problem. Maybe I just have really fond memories of Tekken 3 because back in the day, my buddies and I played Tekken 3 all the time. We loved it. I mean, I even have like a big Tekken 3 poster in my house. Seriously.
And Tekken 5 isn't really pretending to be a next-gen experience. It's just a new Tekken. Whereas Virtua Fighter 5 is a next-gen experience. It's like... It's beautiful and it's very technical, and Milky bored people last week apparently by going into minute detail on it, and I can understand some people don't like to hear about Virtua Fighter in that much detail, but not many fighting games you can talk about with that degree of passion and the technicality behind it, and Tekken is very much a run in, kick, punch. Oh, I'm here with the big boss and he's on fire, and
Detail or not, Virtua Fighter 5, just get it. Find your character that you love and play it. God, it's great. I really like it a lot. I turn the floor over to Mr. John Davison.
So I played Tekken. I've been playing more Crackdown like you, although I'm trailing you on achievements.
You'll catch up. You still have that much.
And now I'm kind of wishing that I waited a little bit and jumped into the Old Spice promo to get my 1500 because I got 400.
Do you really want Fusion Frenzy 2?
I played Fusion Frenzy 2 the other day.
There's a couple copies in my office if you'd like one. I can hook you up.
So my son had surgery this week, and we got back from the hospital, and he just wanted to play video games. So I was like trying to find E-rated games that we could kick back in the bedroom and play. And he's a little young for Gears of War. So I got Fusion Frenzy, and I thought, well, it's E10 or whatever. It's probably okay for him. And I put it in, and it's a very unusual little game.
You're screwing up. People can't see it, but when you said unusual, it looked like you just like sucked on a lemon.
There's some
that wasn't what I thought he sucked on.
There's some mini games in it that he liked a lot, but this whole sort of game show vibe that I didn't play the first one on Xbox, but it's
you missed a really good game.
No, apparently I didn't.
Sarcasm detector vibrating.
So we played that, and then I'd been playing some Burnout Dominator,
the PS2 game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which is. Talking of old Burnouts, for some reason, they've decided to go back to Burnout 2.
Oh, I like Burnout 2.
Burnout 2 was fine, but once you get used to traffic checking in the newer Burnouts, to go back and it not be there anymore is a bit kind of like...
Did Criterion even make that one?
The new one, yeah.
They did.
Yeah, so there's two concurrent projects. There's Dominator, which is PS2 and PSP, and it's basically the same game. And then there's Burnout 5 essentially, which is the open world, super duper PS3, Xbox 360
How
version.
until Dominator comes to the Wii?
Good question. Probably
the
will.
Architecture's in place.
Mm-hmm. But it's a Dominator's.
It's a PSP game.
I found it a little disconcerting going. Like it was almost like them going back. And I talked to them a little bit, and they said if you like Burnout and people lost the fear of traffic, and the original was all about trying to nearly avoid crashes and not have crashes, and they wanted to go back to that. And I'm not sure that. I think if you're a fan of 3 and Revenge, it's going backwards a little bit. So that, but also because of that, and my kid loves cars, we were playing some Burnout Revenge. So I've been digging back through all kinds of stuff.
Burnout Revenge is pretty evergreen, isn't it?
Yeah. And then we played some Winning 11, because it just came out Pro, whatever they're calling it here, Pro
Evolution
Evo.
2007.
Yeah.
Garnet and I both have it to play.
Yeah, we need to get hooked up on that.
Don't. It's so disappointing.
Really? Luke and I love some soccer hookups.
Play the PS2 version.
Just play the PS2 game. Just don't because the 360 version, essentially, it's a dumbed down version of the PS2 game with some feeble online support.
Oh, like the FIFA, like we did the stories about FIFA way back with like the games.
So they did to it what basically they did to FIFA, and it's got a lot of some stuff and not much other stuff, but the PS2 is a much better game. It's better rounded, and apparently the 2008 game is the real next gen
one. This one was just ported over.
This is just a lousy dumbed down port.
Let me ask this: is the core game on 360 the same core game? Because what it comes down to really is I just want to be able. I want to play Luke over the net.
Game, but it's none of the. I hate to say this because I'm not a big FIFA fan, but the refinement of FIFA is notably lacking in the 360 winning 11.
But if Luke and I just want to get together and play a game of soccer online, is there any reason to worry about?
No, it's like if you want a single exhibition game online, the two of you could match up. Fine.
As far as like in a soccer game,
that's all I really
what I'm
want.
looking for in a soccer game. That's it. For like a hardcore soccer fan, or if this was an NFL game and you were describing it to me like that, I would not even fucking touch it.
And so anyone that's really, the Brits will be up in arms about this thing.
Well, dude, British people really buy 360.
Sort of like F1.
Yeah, I also played Winning 11 on DS, and I won't be doing that again.
I had a question.
Thanks much.
A random question about F1 that a friend passed along via the message boards. Is tire-to-tire contact illegal in that game? Isn't that illegal? And is there tire-to-tire damage if you're bumping a car?
There's really good damage models on the whole thing. Yeah.
And yes, it is illegal.
That's a very specific question, Luke.
Isn't it extremely? You would almost think that I gave a shit about racing.
What John and I found was that we didn't like the way they modeled the penalties.
Yeah. So
how are the penalties modeled? This dude's gonna. He wants to know.
So this
badly.
guy. So the way in a real F1 game, if you commit a crime against Formula One, you get time tacked onto your overall thing. So if you place first, they'll give you a 5-second penalty and they take it off, and it could feasibly knock you back into second. The way it does it in F1 is it does it in game. So instead of just penalizing you at the end and saying even though you won with 5 seconds off, the other guy beat you, it actually completely retards your progress in the game. It essentially seizes control of the throttle. So you can steer, but you can't go very fast, and it forces you to sit out your penalty on the track in the middle of the race,
and
absurd. Then it lets you go. It's
Nothing's
absurd.
more fun than penalties.
Is that an option you can customize at all?
No, it's just a
so
system.
It just sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. There's your answer, Brian.
I just thought of another random game I played this week that I want to mention really quickly. It's called Crush, and it's from Sega. It's developed by Kuju, and it's for PSP, and it's this really original puzzle game that's unlike anything I've ever seen. There's videos of it on Game Videos. I couldn't even, if I tried to explain.
And what did you tell me about this game?
If I tried to explain it to you, people had explained it to me. It made no sense. If I explain it here, it won't make any sense. You have to go watch the video.
Yeah, you go watch the video. It's really weird.
Brilliant.
So, what about our message boards? What have these people been up to as we hit the old 43-minute mark? Wow. Just like cruising through.
So
we've been playing some games.
So one thing that I found is that when we make a promise like we're going to do a bonus show on Monday and then we don't do it, it dominates the board. So I really had to dig deep this week to find some conversation.
Come on, people, say some intelligent stuff.
Some people took exception to the fact that we didn't say, even though you did. Karma24 posted a thread which was very reasonably articulated, which you responded to, saying we were very busy. Apologies. But then Salami Inferno started the thread on which Boston College fan basically accused us of ignoring the boards, which Mr. College fan, you might notice that this segment every week is all about stuff on the boards. So
I can tell you that all of us read our boards every damn day. Multiple times.
And if we don't respond to if you feel like we don't come down from the mountain enough to talk, we're talking to you right now.
Right.
Look, I'll jump in
everything.
I'll jump in on one right now that I hadn't jumped in online because I thought the conversation got very petty. Yeah, I read the whole Hotel Dusk thing. I get it. You didn't get what I was saying about not liking the story. The dialogue is great. John and I have had a conversation about how good the dialogue is. What I was talking about in Hotel Dusk was the way that the story is written overall. And I don't need an English professor to tell me how it is.
That was a little defensive, got it?
And if you, I want to point out too, like if your thread gets locked, don't make a new thread about my thread got locked. Like that's just a really awesome way to sort of get like Andrew posted in a thread earlier. Like I don't know how long 300,000 minutes is, but when you get back from your ban, let us know. I mean, there's a point where there's like no mercy and there's no salvation.
That was pretty rock solid of him.
It was awesome.
Link the Legend 2 started a thread. Name the black sheep of your favorite game franchise. You guys have any?
Like the character who's a black sheep in the franchise?
The game in a franchise that's sort of the black... So he uses the example, he says Zelda 2 for him.
Well,
Which I knew Luke would get that response.
Oh my God.
Luke and I are both the Zelda 2 defense force.
Yeah, we align, put on like our Zelda 2
You have friends in this thread. A lot of people...
Yeah. So for me, my favorite franchise is probably Castlevania, and there's tons of black sheeps there. I mean, I can pick one of 20. Yeah.
That's your favorite franchise?
Yeah,
I don't know that about you.
It's an old school thing.
That's not a good question for me. My favorite franchise.
Halo 1.
The black sheep of your favorite franchise is also the 50% of the franchise.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's not really like a
Halo 2.
It's not even a black sheep. It's got its problems.
It's a slightly gray sheep.
Some other good example, Mobius 1.
Mega Man, I guess. Like Mega Man, anything after 3.
No,
yeah,
dude, 8's fantastic.
You think?
Yes,
I didn't play 8.
Fantastic.
X-Wing Alliance was Mobius 1's. You played all the X-Wings game, right? You were a big X-Wing fan.
I was really into the X-Wing.
So
games.
X-Wing and TIE Fighter were good, and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter was good, and he says that Alliance was a bit sort of superfluous to requirements. And being a big fan, if you didn't play it, that's kind of indicative of the problem. Liquid Hokage said Final Fantasy IX.
I agree.
Because he says, just as you start loving all the fairy stuff, it goes all sci-fi.
I agree for different reasons, but I agree it's the Black Sheep of the series.
And I would say that the same thing for Luke and TIE Fighter bears true for me, which is I love Final Fantasy, and I haven't played 9.
I thought 9 was the one that was supposed to be like, this is the old school one. Look, we used the Black Mage model.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
but...
I mean, I played it. When that came out,
it's not a bad game, but it's missing some important things.
Crispy 4001 says Wind Waker.
Wow,
it's a stylistic departure.
No, he actually didn't like. He didn't like the story. He just, I mean, it wasn't an objection to the style.
The story's kind of the same as the other stories in the Zelda games.
Aren't they all basically the same?
Surprise!
Hey, guess who the bad guy is? It's Ganon.
No, spoiler!
Really?
Spoiler!
Wait, damn it! Do you have to rescue
Zelda?
a
You
princess?
gotta rescue that bitch.
Yeah. So, Smoking Joe Cool and Weapon X both cited Command & Conquer Tiberium's Son. You played all the CNCs, right?
That game got,
got a bit
universally slayed. Big surprise.
And then Solid Dancing Snake has he had a whole list, but the highlights for me were Resident Evil Dead Aim, which was god awful.
Oh, yeah. God.
Resident Evil Outbreak, which might have been worse.
How about Part 2?
Part 2 was pretty dreadful.
Yeah.
And Tekken 4, just to
Tekken 4 also,
bring it full circle back.
Yeah.
That's a good thread.
Concur.
It was a good thread, and it's not that long right now, but I have a feeling it could be. Grant Meister, how does the 1UP office get away with all the stuff they do in the workspace? Talking about the drinking and all the,
this week, Crispin rented a Rascal, which is like one of those little mobility cycles for old people to drive around, and it was disaster. He's hitting people, running people over. It was pure chaos.
He rented it?
Yeah, they rented
Dude,
it.
if I heard that cheesy version of Lowrider one more time, I was going to go buy a gun.
How'd you not get hit by him driving around the office?
Well, my space is in a very particular corner. It's kind of difficult to just get.
It kind of came. So it was for a segment for the 1UP show that was tied in with in the new EGM.
The old people
playing
yeah.
Wii. So Crispin was going around on this Rascal wearing a flat cap and driving gloves.
Well, but that's indicative of the mayhem that does erupt here at the office all the time. It's true.
How do you get away with it?
I
think it's because you have such an awesome boss.
I was going to say, like, if you didn't let us drink, I don't feel like we'd get to drink.
It's top down, baby.
Bowley started a new Squadron of Shame thread, who now have a really awesome embroidered patch logo. Have you seen that?
I've seen a bunch of members with like a special signature. Like
I know they're ready. So they're now playing Darwinia. You played that?
Oh, that's the info version, guys.
Which it doesn't require like crazy system requirements. And
I have it on my Steam account.
It's worth going and getting. So they're playing right now. It's only 2-3 pages deep. So
that's the DEF CON.
That's
guys,
the DEF CON
guys.
guys.
I've played DEF CON a bunch. They're going to be at GDC.
We already Chris Min has asked about the God of War 2 reviews. We already addressed that.
Devil May Cry 2. That'd be another good black sheep.
Yep.
That'd be a great black sheep, actually.
Liberty Cabbage.
That's a great name.
Continues to insist that we drink too much.
Wow,
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Saying that last week, I think he was saying that people were slurring and that Milky sounded kind of out of it. You should know Milky doesn't really drink.
In other words, he doesn't.
Like twice a year. Seriously.
Liberty Cabbage, you probably drink too little.
Last one, Homicide, which I think is really awesome.
Let's get geopolitical here on one of yours.
Homicide, why doesn't Live have a way for adults to only play adults? I would pay extra for age verification, which degenerated into, even if you could limit to playing adults, there's no asshole verification.
The ACLU would probably sue you, and that'd be the end of that.
I still hear an awful lot of adults calling me names that start with N.
Really?
I hear that. Yeah, I still get that a lot, man. I've been playing Gears of War with the game videos, guys. And I know, I guess I should have talked about that earlier. But I've been playing Gears of War multiplayer again. And we'll get some random guys who join. And you're like, really? Jason, can you flush this turd?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just one of those universal truths.
I don't think there's any way to guarantee, unless you sort of pick and choose from your friends list who you're going to play with. I don't think there's any way to guarantee you're going to be playing with people you want.
But by comparison, I'll tell you this, is that I love the fact that Xbox Live, everybody has a headset, because when you get together with your buddies, everybody's going to be able to talk and you can have chat. And the whole PS3 thing still drives me nuts, because I don't care how much you say, all you have to do is use a Bluetooth headset. You know what? I'm sorry. I have cell phones. I have a Bluetooth headset. Sometimes it's run down, sometimes it's not. I don't think about grabbing it and hooking up. It should just be one thing. Everybody has it. You sit down and use it. Why are you smirking, Shane? What are you smirking about?
Nothing.
No, really. What are you smirking about, dude? Seriously, I like it when we play Gears, because along with playing Gears, it's like I'm hanging out with the guys we're talking.
That Xbox Live headset didn't come to you free of charge, and it's not like you didn't.
No, it came in the console that cost $200 less than yours.
And if you buy a year Live subscription, it comes in that package too. You can't hardly buy Live without getting that.
To get this back into it, a Bluetooth headset can only be paired with one thing at once, right?
Right.
No, I think you can pair it. You can pair it to multiple things. It just has to exchange codes.
You can't. It can only ever be paired with one thing at a time. So if you have
so you just repair it.
Right. Have you tried pairing something with a PS3? It's a fucking pain in the ass.
Do you have to pair the stupid remote?
I just had to.
Yeah.
I paired my
remote.
I paired my remote yesterday. It took me 5 seconds. I had to press a button. That was really difficult.
The few times that I have paired, like I pair my phone to my Mac laptop to dump the pictures off of it. That's always gone well. I haven't had any problem with Bluetooth pairing. Maybe I'm lucky.
But a headset, it's the code every time, and then when you repair it with your phone again. I mean, it's just an additional thing that is, if you have one Bluetooth, it's not like you walk into the room and you turn on your Bluetooth headset and your PS3 goes, oh, you have a Bluetooth headset.
Right.
You have to go through the because if it's with your phone, you have to then. It's not quite right yet.
Exactly.
But
my disagreement.
Firmware can address it.
Yeah, my disagreement isn't the Bluetooth pairing system. It's the whole deal of I'm going to use my cell phone headset and maybe it's charged, maybe it's not. And
I've been using a USB headset with PS3 because I have one from SOCOM. A lot of people have them. Already.
Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of a wireless setup?
Well, but it works.
It works.
Okay. All right, that's Shane Bettenhausen over there.
I don't play my 360 wireless either. Battery sucks.
Oh, I was doing the transition to the next segment.
Oh, the one where we go to the break?
Exactly. That's Luke Smith talking right there. We'll be back in just a minute. We got DICE. We got some awards. We got prep for GDC. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You are listening to One Up Yours on the One Up Radio Network.
Want more Extreme Tech? Well, now you can join the crew of expert analysts for a weekly podcast. They'll give you the lowdown on the latest technology news, product reviews, and let you know what's coming up. Just go to extremetech.com to subscribe.
That was a slow hand job, Garnet.
And we're back. Design, innovate, communicate, entertain. That's what that DICE stands for. We didn't have that down last week. We were
completely wrong.
Clueless.
Yeah, but Sam had like a great guess. I remember being like, shouldn't you know this, Sam? Still.
We had design, interactive, computer...
entertainment.
Communicate, entertain. Okay, so anyway, you guys, DICE, we're going to hit that. We're going to hit those awards that you were just talking about, GDC preview. So let's kick it off. You guys were at DICE, and just for starters, because obviously knowing how well we knew what DICE even was, Luke, you hadn't been there before. Shane, had you been to a DICE?
This was my second DICE.
So this is your second one. What is DICE? What's the vibe of the place?
Well, it's a lot like GDC, except much smaller, more personal, and like high rollers, heavy hitters, cream of the crop in terms of the developers.
Okay. And what's the purpose? I mean, they have like this, if you go to the DICE website, they have like this great, platitude about how it brings together the developers and the publishers, and, it's like crazy BS. What's it really like, Luke?
Well, it really sort of is like that. It really is a bunch of these guys, like sort of some of the what you would hope to believe are the brightest minds sitting around talking. And the way that our schedule was set up was there were a lot of panels and stuff going on, and we ended up in meetings almost the whole day with different members of the the game development community. And
I was really bummed. Like I missed Will Wright's Spore presentation, which I hear was pretty cool because we had other things to do during that time. So that was kind of a bummer. But
all these presentations going during the day, like
you'll get a chance to hear it again next year.
Great.
For instance, Will Wright introduced 4 of the people from his team on Spore, and each of them has a different task, and he explained like their relative tasks, and then had them all explain what they were doing. And he talked about like the formation of a team and making a game like Spore, where Chris Taylor talked, like we talked about earlier, talked about like the gas-powered games approach to video games. Phil Harrison and N-Guy Kroll from Newsweek, had that that Q&A that went back and forth, and the stuff from the night before sort of provided the only actual news.
I was a little disappointed in that.
Well,
DICE isn't 20 questions.
Yeah.
What were you disappointed with?
I don't know. I just felt a little
canned.
Yeah, I don't know.
Control.
It wasn't. I know the intention was that it was very conversational, but I just felt that I didn't feel that Phil was very forthcoming. It seemed very sort of on message, and I think the idea of it was, let's build these questions, and it was supposed to feel a bit more off the cuff, and it would get a bit more into the thinking.
Well, I'll take the sort of out there. It felt on message.
Well, I mean, he was definitely a little guarded in his responses, but I think he felt his hands were tied because a lot of things he wanted to reveal he couldn't because they already they have a timetable for when we're revealing content.
But I think if you're going, I think the intention, if you're going into one of the and the setup is 20 questions with N-Guy, who really knows games, and he works for a huge outlet in front of your peers. There's an assumption from the audience and the press that are watching that it's going to be candid, and I didn't feel that it really was. It was all a little bit sort of.
Well, if you watch Phil, I don't know how much of it's going to make it in, but Shane and I interviewed Phil for the One Up Show, and there are points in the interview where he is absolutely like. He's totally like not paying attention. I asked one question where he like can't even look me in the face when he's answering it. Like his body language, like watch the One Up Show segment. I'm not sure how much of it's going to get in, and hopefully it'll come out as its own like independent video interview at some point. But like Phil Harrison's body language is very telling, and he's someone who like if he doesn't like a question, like he'll answer it, but like you'll be able to tell in the way he like looks off into space and like he's just being troubled to answer the question. And I like Phil. Like I think he's a nice guy and he's a good interview. But like when you watch how he responds to you, you're like, Jesus.
Set up that piece for us. When did you catch up with him? Where was it? What was the context of how you caught him?
Shane and I, it was an appointment that we made through Sony Computer Entertainment. But we talked to him by a pool in sort of how'd you describe that? Like a Playboy-esque grotto.
A little bit of a grotto. Yeah.
Sitting on a bunch of like red cushions, and
all right.
It just was Shane on one side and myself on the other, and just going back and forth with Phil. And there were some questions that we didn't get to that we would have liked to, but.
So what did you come away with? What did you come away with out of the whole thing?
Well, actually, the most interesting parts of DICE for me aren't the sessions or even the interviews. It's the chances you get to talk to these people like outside of that context. Like the night before, there's like a mixer and you could just like meet everybody and you're drinking, and that's when I met a lot of developers who had met in the past, and people I hadn't met who are actually fans of the show, which stunned me. I always kind of imagined that this podcast is listened to by like my friends, the 12 people on our message board, and like a bunch of dicks on gaff.
Oh, don't forget John's dad.
And John's dad.
My dad listens. Hi, Dad.
But in reality, seemingly cool people actually listen to this podcast.
Seemingly cool.
And that stunned me. I found it very encouraging. So,
my dad's cool. He listens to this podcast. He must be.
Phil Harrison's kind of cool too, huh?
But he's a nice guy. He's a good guy. He answers questions, as best he can. He does a good job of being as forthcoming as he can. It's a little bit like Karen Kaplan.
I think increasingly he seems to be in a tough spot at Sony in that his job is head of Worldwide Studios. He's essentially the games guy, and he's become the spokesman for the platform, which I don't know, is that his job?
Not necessarily, but he actually did a good job, I say, defending the platform in that talk with N-Guy, because he dispelled some rumors like, oh, EA gets preferential treatment,
right.
And the guy from EA was like, no, we don't. It's like he's right there, like that's a myth. There were several myths that were dispelled about
right.
Sony in that Q&A.
But as head of Worldwide Studios, I think his primary responsibility is getting all these studios working together and sharing technology and talking about games, and I guess the firmware and stuff comes out of it. But he's become very much positioned as Mr. PS3, Mr. Western PS3.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is to add the qualifier Mr. Western PS3, because that's a big differentiator.
If Kudaragi's not available, it's Phil. He's the man when it comes to the platform. But he didn't really talk much. I mean, I guess GDC, they're going to talk more specifically about games.
Yeah, because we asked him about GDC, and he was very much not interested in talking about it.
I mean, across the board, the whole SCA organization is very evasive about when you bring up GDC.
They must think they have something awesome.
Well, I mean, we've heard like bits and pieces of what might be there, and I think it's not what people expect. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you that it's actually not what people expect.
Yeah, because you kind of know, because Sony played a big hand last year at E3. They showed like 20 plus first-party games,
Mm-hmm.
So you accept, well, I'm going to see those again. Well, maybe you're not going to see those at GDC.
Maybe some of them aren't even really going to be games that come out on discs anymore.
Could be.
Changes in directions. Anyway,
Suddenly we're coy around here.
Suddenly, I've been coy for months.
I got drawn into the whole Shane thing there. That was totally stupid.
you enjoyed being coy there.
Yeah, whatever. Screw it. Anyway,
but also part of DICE are these awards, the AIS awards, and that's the kind of the big climax of the whole event.
Before we get to the climax of the whole
thing, I don't want to jump to the climax just yet. I'm still fucking.
Oh,
yeah. So you did Phil.
Yep.
Oh, good.
You interviewed some Microsoft people as well.
I haven't gotten any sense of like what this conversation with Phil is like. Don't leave me just like. Don't give me just the one-up show part. Give me what was it like.
Well, I mean, it's Shane.
What'd you guys talk about?
Well, it's Shane, Phil, and I doing sort of exactly what you would expect with Shane, Phil, and I talking. I mean,
Shane's cheerleading.
No, not at all. There was one joke that Phil made where he was like, "Did you want to answer these questions?" Because it was what we were talking about was the hard drive, and Phil basically said, 60 gig, 20 gig, and we're probably going to have. I mean, paraphrasing, we're probably going to have a bigger hard drive, later. I mean, as these things tend to expand, like expect it to expand. And Shane was like, "Well, actually, you could buy a bigger hard drive if you wanted to." And Phil looks at Shane and goes, "Did you want to switch places?" And I said, "Yeah, like you guys are kind of on the same message right here." But otherwise, I mean, we asked a lot about the digital download initiative, which seems to be really the beginning of what we're going to see. Where we're going to see a huge differentiation between what Sony and Microsoft are going to be doing in that digital distribution space. Like Microsoft,
how so?
Microsoft seems to be is committed to releasing live arcade type titles, but Sony seems more interested in releasing games like GTHD, Tekken 5. They seem more interested in trying to do more with like capitalizing on the space that they have in the hard drive.
I gotta say, one thing about Tekken that I like is with it being on the hard drive, there's no wait for anything. Everything's instant. There's no waiting for. I mean, because the Blu-ray drive is pretty slow. I mean, like MotorStorm takes an age to render those tracks out and pull it in from Blu-ray.
Well, just loading the car you want to drive.
But Tekken is like bang, 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 bang. I mean, like the reason you can blast all the way through to the boss in 5 minutes is because it's loading so fast.
And I think that Phil and I think Sony are pretty committed to like expanding that digital space. Which when you see what they're doing with what they're putting on PSN, I mean, they are like regularly getting content up. We talked with Microsoft too about how Sony is setting all their first parties up for the most part. It seems like you've got different first party studios, major first party studios working on live games or PSN games. These studios, AAA studios like Santa Monica and the Jaffe Calling All Cars stuff. I mean, that's not an anomaly, and that's going to continue to happen in the first party games where Microsoft, in our discussions with Shane Kim and Phil Spencer, readily admitted that, our first party studios right now are focused on making the AAA next gen games that we need for this year. And after this year, like maybe those studios will have time to like do some more creative stuff, do like a live arcade game. But Sony is like letting their it seems to me like Sony's letting their developers, chip away at their next gen experience. They're still enjoying the long tail of the PS2 and chip away at their experience and work on that live or the PSN type game.
Okay, so let me play the other side of that. How do you feel about then the other side of that argument, which is that at Microsoft, the heavy hitter guys are working on heavy hitter projects, and the live arcade opens the door for the smaller guys, like Small Arms, Gastronaut Studios, or the guys who made Heavy Weapon.
But
Heavy Weapon.
It's a way that Sony can differentiate themselves from their competitors when they have real, like, meaty next-gen experiences that are downloadable, as opposed to like bite-sized.
Wait, did you just call Calling All Cars a meaty next-gen experience?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that haven't been revealed yet.
Right. I mean, yeah, and you're going to see games that are going to appear on the PlayStation Network that you would have never thought this is going to be a download only.
Okay, so then again, if I'm an independent developer, why do I want to be on PS3 Network? Why do I want to have to compete against that? Wouldn't I rather go to Xbox Live where I can throw open the door and be on?
I don't think Sony's necessarily concerned about whether the guys who make Alien Hominid can put their new game. I think they're more concerned about putting like an established franchise that you would never think would be a download only game as a download only game. That's a first party game that they're making 100% profit on, and there's nowhere at retail to get it. You can only get it through the network.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be the difference. You're not going to see Microsoft going back to the well with the next Viva Pinata game being a download only game. I mean, the next Viva Pinata game will be a DS game.
Oh.
Well, we weren't the only players.
So you also talked to Shane Kim.
We talked with Shane Kim and Phil Spencer from Microsoft, and Shane is the corporate vice president, and Phil Spencer is the guy who sent 2 Human up at E3, is how I always describe him to people.
That's not the best way to introduce him.
But he's actually the head of studio development for Microsoft, and those guys talked about how Microsoft, going forward, and there's a story that's going to be on 1UP probably by the time this is up about some stuff that Shane Kim had to say about the new SKU. He's evasive about the new SKU, but the reason he's evasive about the new SKU is...
You mean the Zephyr SKU?
Yeah, the Zephyr SKU of the 360. And the reason he's being evasive is because they're not going to confirm it yet, but chances are it exists. And the reason you can conjecture that it exists is because Microsoft downgraded the shipment figures. I mean, those fiscal year shipment figures, you don't cut back $3 million because you're not expecting success at the retail channel. You cut the shipment figures back because you're not going to sell through on a SKU that you're going to essentially outdate.
So for people who don't know what you're talking about, they've reduced what they're expecting to sell in the financial statements.
Yeah, in the financial statements that were released in January, I think, probably at this point. But they downgraded how many units they expected to sell in the fiscal year from, probably like 15 million to 12 million, which would only be 1.6 million over the next 3 months, something like that. And the reason, and those downgrades initially, people are like, "Oh God, Microsoft, blah blah blah." But these quotes, the quotes from Shane Kim indicate that one of the things you've got to watch if you're going to introduce new product is your supply at retail. Well, why would you not resupply retail? Well, because you're going to add a new product. And the new product is going to be an HDMI.
And you don't want to announce that new product because people aren't going to buy the ones that are on
This happens to the iPod every year. Apple clears out the channel of the current gen when it's bringing in a new one. It happened with when it went to the 5G iPod. I mean, I think there's a lot of comparisons you can make with Microsoft's strategy with 360, and I think what we'll see from Sony with PS3, in the iterating on the platform multiple times, making it slightly better, adding tiny little things to it, where the core functionality is exactly the same, but if you're coming to the party late, you're getting a little bit more out of the box.
I think the danger is Zephyr is not a small iteration; it's a big iteration, and I think people who have an Xbox 360 now,
I disagree. I don't think you're going to want to rebuy one. And if you have a TV with HDMI inputs, you have a TV that has component input.
What if it has the HD DVD built in? And what if it has a much larger hard drive?
That is a big move. But if it's just HDMI and a bigger hard drive, it's not that big of a deal. That's an iPod level upgrade.
Right.
There's one extra way to plug it into something, and there's more storage space, and
that is exactly an iPod level upgrade.
Right.
But iPod,
if it's HD DVD, then they are splitting the market. But I'd be very surprised if they do.
So I think that ironically, you saying it's an iPod level upgrade makes Shane's argument true, because I sit there on Muni every day and see everybody whip out 5th generation iPod. Because
how often do you see
iPod users buy a new iPod every time there's a new freaking iPod.
But Xbox 360 is a bad example. I was going to say a console doesn't break every year, but the 360 does.
Well, an iPod breaks every year too.
Yeah, well, exactly. People upgrade either because there's the early adopters that just want to have the latest thing. But you see a lot of the people that are sporting minis and nanos. You see a lot of people that bought the cheaper one just as a music player, and they'll keep iterating on that. And it was whenever you come in, you just buy the most recent thing that's in your price range. And I think it's something that we're seeing not just there, but in all consumer electronics, where to keep a brand alive for longer, there's little iterations that will come. So I think this is moving towards.
But before we get away from this, I want to run around the table real quick, because I think people will really want to know what we have to think about this. Good or bad thing that changed from a console being what it is for most of its life to iterating on it? John?
I think it's fine as long as it's not HD DVD level. I think if HD DVD remains out of the box and the 360 is always DVD 9 based, it's fine. If they add HDMI and they add bigger hard drives and they add whatever, I think that's a good thing.
Luke?
Well, I mean, whichever one's going to be the Halo 3 one is the one that
No. Iterating on consoles, good or bad?
Well, the thing is, it depends on how you iterate on the consoles. If you're just making it, another thing Ms. Kim said was,
Would you call him Mr. Kim?
I was going to, and then I was like, I'm not the New York Times. What's the deal? Another thing that Shane said was, if you're making a difference at retail, if you're changing products, you have to create a difference so that consumers aren't confused. Which the most logical way of changing the 360 is by changing the appearance. Conceivably, like Microsoft,
Black 360 confirmed.
Well, that's like the debug model. But the danger is that Microsoft could have consumers buying its console 3 times. Like, oh, I bought a white one at launch. Oh, now I want an HDMI one. Oh, it's our biggest game, and now I want that one too. But that's like a premium version version. This is the platinum version. And now, if you do that, like, no console is worth buying more than
No, you buy
twice.
You buy you buy one when you need one. You might upgrade, but I think everything in it is getting cheaper by the year. So the chips, they're moving to 65 nanometer chips. The DVD drives are getting better. Hard drives are getting cheaper, and they want to keep the retail price at the same level. So they're just going to keep putting more in and charging you the same.
MacBook Pro. Shane?
I think the only way iterations on home consoles are acceptable is if it's an invisible upgrade, like what happens all the time with consoles, or if
So the PS2 theory.
right, or if further down the road, it's a huge change, like a smaller, cheaper version, like you saw with the PS1 or with the redesigned NES. That is totally cool. But like, if the Zephyr 360 is more expensive, has all this greater functionality this early in the game, I think it's suicide.
I think that's the key. I think
Suicide.
the only way it's going to work if it's exactly the same price. They're just switching it out and they're saying $399 now gets you a bit more.
Okay, so let me jump in on that, and let me just say, if they follow the MacBook Pro model, which is increasing the functionality and continuing to offer more as more is available to them, I think that's a good thing. It benefits everyone. The gamers who are aggressive and will want to go out and buy the latest and greatest will go out and buy the latest and greatest. They'll hand their current model off to either a sibling or...
That works with handhelds. It doesn't work with 400.
I will be so pissed.
Or they will sell them over eBay. But suffice it to say, they will take their original unit and get it somewhere else out there.
If they bring one out that's got HDMI and a bigger hard drive, are you going to rush out and buy one? I'm not going to.
Okay, and then I think the other part of it is that it continues to make that platform more and more appealing to the general consumer. You keep on saying for $400 you're getting this. For $400 now you're getting this. For $400 now you're getting this.
It's going to happen with
Keeps
PS3.
getting better and better.
A year or 18 months from now, there'll be a PS3. The $600 PS3 will have a 200 gig hard drive in it, probably.
But if the goal was to get the core unit down to as cheap as possible, then Zephyr seems to be kind of counterproductive to that.
I'm starting to
No, it doesn't. Wait. How does it seem counterproductive? The core unit is still the core unit. That's a separate animal in and of itself.
I'm starting to question the commitment to the core unit, though.
Okay.
Because I'm starting to wonder how you can, like, would you phase out the premium, replace the premium with the HDMI and the bigger hard drive, and keep the core unit just $100 less? I mean, that first upgrade to the core, the price change to the core unit has to happen in conjunction with the Zephyr box.
I wouldn't say that that's out of the question.
I have a prediction of what's going to happen. That is that we're going to get the new Platinum or whatever that has the Zephyr stuff. Mm-hmm. And the core will be replaced with the 20 gig hard drive. And I think the key to this is you get a year of gold free with it. Whenever you buy a 360, that part of the retail price is a live subscription.
Would definitely be a step in the right direction.
And the reason I think they're going to do that, but they're going to try and hook you to get you to enter your credit card to activate your free account, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The thing that got me thinking about this was Shivering Isle, the fact that it's download only. That to do an expansion pack with achievements and all that stuff, you have to have a hard drive.
I think that'd be a smart move because the more crazy shit they announce, the more piecemeal it becomes, the more fragmented your audience becomes. It could quickly become a mess.
So back to DICE,
wow.
where we originally started from.
I think that was probably what people want to.
Big long tangent we went on there, huh?
No, it was a very good.
It's relevant.
What else came out of your conversation with Shane?
We talked about the Viva Pinata DS stuff a little bit earlier.
Legitimate?
I think so.
Potentially.
Phil Spencer repeated it to MTV. I mean, they both said pretty much the same thing, that Viva Pinata on the DS is absolutely something.
And Rare just did Diddy Kong.
Yeah, Microsoft could have spiked Diddy Kong if they wanted to. I mean, I don't think that you're going to see Microsoft expand into the handheld market on their own. I think that a smart way would be if they can get a franchise on the DS. I mean,
so you don't think the Zune phone is real?
It might be, but I think it'll play Pac-Man or something.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be
a gaming.
It's not an X-Boy.
Yeah.
So you think that there's more future in Zune as mobile phone and music player than it is?
Zune phone is Microsoft's iPhone.
Okay. All right, that's fair.
Yeah, I think
there's been some speculation that it would have game playing. That would be a big part of it.
Both Shane Kim and Phil Spencer were extremely. I don't want to say defensive, but just because it's negative connotation, but they were both very protective of Viva Pinata and Rare, and despite the fact that the game has sold like balls, despite any effort we've made to sell it on one of yours, I mean, they're still very committed to that IP, and they've continued to restate that. Like, wow, nice, Garnet. Good board ship. That was impressive. But they continue to sort of defend the Viva Pinata realm, and indicated that Rare is looking at one of the things that came out of it with Shane was was Rare's looking at, old properties that they may have shipped 360 launch games with for sequels. So Perfect Dark Zero 2 or Cameo 2 or something like that.
Hold me back.
I know, chomping at the bit. The Mass Effect, like we talked about the trilogy idea, like Mass Effect and Two Human were both announced as trilogies.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I just have to stop for a second. Did you see those screenshots that just came out of Mass Effect? Oh,
It does.
I'm so hot for that game.
It does. It looks really good.
Yeah, I'm excited for Halo, but Mass Effect's my game this year.
It's the Oblivion of your year.
It's the Oblivion in my year. I mean, I'm excited for Shivering Isle, but the thing I'm going to sink so much time into Mass Effect.
I have to say that of all the games I've ever played, KOTOR is right up there in the top of games I ever loved. And Jade Empire, I have to say, really kind of sort of let me down. And I have faith that actually Mass Effect will be so good that I'll be satisfied by it.
Garnet, you're going to be really excited because soonish you're going to see a lot more Mass Effect. It's coming.
Comes out like
God, I can't wait.
You started talking about the trilogy
Yes.
thing, which we've had some doubts about.
Yeah, we have had some doubts about, like, especially with something like Two Human, and to a lesser degree with Mass Effect, because they've been like, yeah, we're going to support the shit out of it with downloadable content. And I mean, both games have been delayed numerous times, and Phil talked about how he sort of waxed about how games come together and they're pitched as, trilogies, and, well, you hope to support the IP as best you can, and you don't really know if there's going to be a sequel until you've really got to examine the climate of the gaming community at that time that you're ready to bring out a
radar.
sequel. Yeah, you really want to make sure that you're going to bring a sequel out in the right climate. So it's like, well, is that climate dictated by how many millions the last one did or didn't sell? So, I mean, as far as
just because you announce trilogy doesn't mean you're getting a trilogy. See Advent Rising or the Oddworld quintology.
So the Two Human and Mass Effect triologies are still hanging in the balance. What else you want to know?
Two Human would actually have to get started before the triology can start.
Hey, I talked to Dennis at DICE, and I think we'll be seeing a lot of that really soon. And
I hope so.
I still believe in it. I still believe in it.
I'll believe in any game up through the point where they're actually showing me not final code, but when they're showing me something that's like really far along and it's not coming together, that's a problem. But up to that point, I'll absolutely get excited about stuff, and I'm still excited about Two Human. Are you still excited about that?
I mean,
I don't know that I'm excited about it. I'm curious.
It was a little God of War-y in a lot of ways.
It was God of War with like some guns,
with laser guns.
Yeah,
a little bit.
All right, so this thing did kind of culminate in some awards, and we've talked this shit about it in awards. What was funny? What was good?
Hey, okay, before you go in, like last year, Jay Moore, the comedian, actor Jay Moore was also the host, and I agree. I think he's the funniest host I've ever seen at any video game event in my entire life.
Last year,
ever.
Jay Moore, this was the Dave Jaffe Cunnilingus event,
right? And this year he wasn't quite as blue, but he was still on. He was funny.
Man, if you've never seen, dude, I saw Jay Moore in Tempe when I used to live in Phoenix, and dude is freaking hilarious to stand. And you know what's funny is, so I talked about the Jim Rome show before as like inspiration. Fucking Jay Moore used to like sub in for Rome on the show because just because he could handle that stuff. He
actually knows games somewhat. He was really funny. But as expected, Cliffy B was the big winner of the night. We all knew this.
Hey, Gears of War cleaned up.
Isn't that how those awards go? Yeah, it was like they went 8 for 11, and then Mark Rain quickly pointed out, well, we won for Rainbow Six too. Also, that used Unreal, so I'm going to count that as a win. So he's like, that's 9 out of 10. I'm like, actually, that's not.
But it wasn't just Gears night. I mean, Zelda won a few awards, Brain Age won a few awards, and Wii Sports won a few. I was really happy for that one. I was
good.
cheering for that.
Yeah. Oh, great. That's what we want to encourage.
Gameplay engineering outstanding achievement.
Exactly.
So at the award ceremony, the sort of weird moment that happened every 10 minutes or so when there was an award was there was a green room that was set up for the developers and, like Reggie, for instance, to come back to and field questions. And it sort of became this spectacle of, I would say, like playing house a little bit. Like, what was that analogy you used, Garnet?
It's like tea time.
Yeah,
it's
where
like
it's like,
tea time.
you don't really know what to do in a situation like this for the most part. It's like, well, you could go ask questions about how it feels to win. That's what they do in the Oscars.
For anyone who's not clued in, by the way, Luke takes his job tremendously seriously, and so he's very much an advocate for making game journalism legitimate.
Well, and for
making it a real professional endeavor, and not.
I'll say it's nearly impossible to get an interview with Reggie. He's a very busy man, and unless you're like CNN or Reuters or someone, you're not going to get him. So this is your chance to talk to Reggie.
So this is a great chance to talk to Reggie. And I mean, I don't necessarily think that the questions that an industry needs to ask Reggie is
someone runs over, jams a mic in their face, and they say,
how's it feel to win an award for Wii Sports? Like, no, how about why the fuck can't I buy a console? What the fuck's up with friend codes? Like, you have an opportunity to ask, like, you have these people, they're not expecting it. kick him in the nuts. Just do it. Like, and I mean, I want to see
great.
that.
Great opportunity to catch him off guard. But I mean, I think he might avoid some of those.
He might duck, dodge, and weave. But at least at least we would ask.
And that is the angle of being a real journalist, is making them at least go on record and say, you know what, I'm not ready to answer that question.
But I mean, and it's a matter of like people not really being familiar with a situation like that. I mean, as it is, it's like, well, we've got a green room, and well, what do you do in a green room? You ask, it's like, how does it feel to win? And so, I mean, in that respect, I mean, that's probably what the AIAAS folks wanted.
But you have to wonder, like, what you expect the answer to be. Like, cool, it feels pretty fucking good.
It's kind of heavy.
Yeah,
it's that's what it is. It's heavier than I thought.
Where would you put these awards in the hierarchy of video game awards? Because we've talked about this before, John and I, and were you guys here? Well, anyway, we've talked about awards shows, right? We talked about the video game business needing an award show that worked. Is this the one that could be it?
I like it more than the Spike Awards.
Wow, it's great. It's better than the G4 Awards too. Surprise.
I don't know. It's
not doing it for you.
I don't agree that the game industry needs an awards ceremony to validate.
Wait. So you're saying that despite the amount of creative effort that goes into creating these games, that they don't deserve recognition in a broad sense?
There's a ton of different awards, and I think the argument is, does like saying the games industry needs an Oscars is yet another example of the games industry using a different entertainment industry
to codify itself.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't need that. It's a more modern, more progressive, cutting edge piece of media that doesn't need to look at what is, by comparison, primitive to validate itself. And this is something that the games industry is guilty of on every level. It's always Doug Lowenstein last week with his complaints about, it's not the same. And it's, and all the Lester Bangs in journalism things. It's all symptomatic of the same thing. It's looking to 20, 30 years ago to validate something modern. And it's not like that. The audience isn't like that. The way people communicate about games isn't like that. You don't need people in tuxes getting up on national TV accepting an award for Gears of War.
What do you need?
It just in this, the beauty of this is it's recognition from their peers. This is developers saying, Cliffy, it was fucking great. Good on you, mate. And that's what it needs. And the movie industry has that, but arguably in the games industry, there's so much more validation from your peers saying you're great because of how complex it is.
That's kind of why I like these awards. They're a little unprofessional even. I mean, having Jay Moore as the host dropping the F-bomb throughout, it's very loose. Everyone's drunk, and it is kind of fun, and it feels like this is a community almost. It isn't like the Oscars, and it isn't like the Spike Awards. It isn't slick like that. I mean, I think it is closer to what we need. Definitely.
Right, and this is the Academy is, it's all like-minded people that know what goes into making these things. Well,
and for example, they give their first Lifetime Achievement Award to Minoru Arakawa and Howard Lincoln, and it was actually kind of weirdly emotional. They got like a double standing ovation. I mean, these guys are really important. They formed Nintendo of America back, and they fought all these battles, and it really actually meant something. And I don't know if you thought it was bullshit, but I think people around me were like, wow, this is actually kind of cool that they're getting this award. I thought.
All right, so we did awards. You guys kind of split on that, but it sounds like you, Shane, you kind of think that could be like the next big thing.
I think it's a good start, definitely.
So out of this whole time you spent in Vegas, what was the most? And DICE is laid back. The whole thing is like that, right? The whole experience.
It's pretty low key, and you're in this resort, and it's definitely not like your regular gaming event.
So it's in a place like off the Strip, right?
Right. It's in Henderson. It's like you're not actually in Vegas either.
That's where the cat houses are, isn't it?
It is where the.
What the fuck is a cat house?
Legalized prostitution.
Ladies, if you pay them money.
There's a show on HBO called Cat House. Watch it.
They will have sex with you.
Shane's.
It varies in price.
It starts at about $1,000.
Is his price
eyes lit up?
Quality?
He's like, woo.
Yeah.
The problem is, none of them really. You look at him, you're like, I wouldn't really pay for that. Anyway,
I think you were asking me a question, Gar.
I was asking a question. So out of this whole time that you guys spent hanging out there, what was the most interesting, just kind of hanging out, talking conversation you had?
Wow, I had a conversation with this lady, Patty, who is helping to make E3 and E4 about the future of
E4?
E4 all. They're calling it E4 now. About the future of these.
They're one step away from euphoria.
It's one better.
Yeah, it's like I got a little glimpse of what we can expect from this year's E3 and from this year's E4.
Okay.
And next year, what we can expect, and it was startling stuff.
Did you say Patty?
Patty.
I think I used to work with her doing the E3 show daily.
That's where I thought I knew her from.
Yeah.
Yeah, she seemed vaguely.
So is it really
familiar.
invite only, like you guys talked about last week?
Yeah,
On the show? Did anyone contact you guys?
Apparently,
No one.
Zero response.
Apparently, E3 is like, where there's be 60,000 people at E3 this year, 3,000 people. So
And hard limited.
I'm gonna have a vacation that week. It's
I think
gonna
there should be
awesome.
total transparency on the voting process, so we all know how many votes people got.
Did you see the response? So Milky got a little response of his whole thing of like, that's great. Don't vote for me.
Milky doesn't want to be.
Right, he's like,
He does not want to go to E3.
Well, I do want to go to E3 still. I think it's going to be fun.
I think you'll be okay. Sony will be voting.
So did Patty like get you energized for this at all? Are you excited
a
about
little
it?
scared, but it's
Scared about what?
it might be a logistical disaster.
Yeah, it's
this
going to be
year.
they're going to be like, oh, well, we voted for these people to go to these 3 places at the same time.
Yeah, but it sounds like E4 might actually be cooler than we thought.
Okay, why is
So
that?
E4 is the GamePro one, right?
Right, it's open to the public, but they also want to try to make it useful for the press and have there be areas where we can go and play games that the press.
So this is
public
going to
can't
be
play.
down at the docks in London, right?
No, it's going to be where E3 used to be at the Los Angeles Convention Center.
In October?
I think it's October. They said like, oh, the South Hall is going to be this, the West Hall is going to be this. It's like, oh, it sounds like E3 again. So
Well, IDG, who publishes GamePro, were involved in E3 right at the very beginning. So I
Right.
mean, they've always had some stake in it.
yeah, so I'm keeping an open mind on it. It might be worthwhile.
Luke, how about you? What was the most interesting? Just hanging out with some people, having a cocktail, shooting the shit.
I talked about it a little bit on Legendary Threads, so but it was probably like the first night that we got to town, and I ended up having dinner with a couple of the guys from Blizzard, like Corey from.
Well, I will say, like, I met Corey, and Corey's awesome. I'm sure he's listening. But what's funny is I never met this guy. He's a designer in World of Warcraft, and apparently I heard that he is a big fan, and he didn't know how to approach me. And I thought that was the funniest thing ever. He was like, "I'm a big fan, and I'm embarrassed of how to approach you." I thought that was hilarious and retarded. And yeah.
Shane likes chocolates. He's kind of good.
But it was probably sitting around the first night that I was there and like shooting the shit with some of the designers for Blizzard and like Rob Pardo, who's the vice president of design or something at Blizzard, and just like bullshitting about raid design. And
No, but tell me, you told me, so we were having this conversation, Luke and I, the other day. We were talking about this, and we're like riding down the elevator, and they look over, and they apparently looked over at him, and they're like, so how hardcore are you into World of Warcraft?
Well, yeah, I mean,
and what did you tell them?
Well, I'll get to it. Like there were like people were talking about like their different World of Warcraft experiences,
Right.
and this was like right when I walked up and was just sort of like listening to the group, and a couple guys from Sony were talking and to the Blizzard guys, and they were like, well, I mean, what about you, Luke? And I was like, I mean, I used to play a lot. Like before I started at Ziff, I played all the time, and they're like, well, how much did you play? And I was like, well, I mean, 2 words, sort of sum up my character. And they're like, well, what? I was like, Scarab Lord. And Corey, the lead level designer's jaw dropped. He was like, you're a Scarab Lord? You made the scepter? And I was like, yeah, I actually opened the gate on my server. But then I
think Shane has no idea what you're talking about.
No idea.
At dinner when we were talking about this story, and that, like, I've told it before, it's like one character on every server got to do this event, and there's a huge quest line to do it.
Basically, he had hundreds of minions gathering stuff for him.
It's a huge undertaking that, like, it's an incredible experience. And I talked about this at dinner when I was talking about it with all these guys who fucking made the game, and that is like one of my favorite moments in gaming. And to see their faces, like, reacting and like see them like lighting up, like they're so happy with what they're doing in World of Warcraft, and they should be. And that was probably for me, like, that was a big like fangasm moment, getting to sit around and like shoot the shit about old EQ raids with with Rob. And that was a really cool moment for me. It's too bad that it was like right at the very beginning of the show. Everything else sort of like Corey Barlog at the party after the AIS, he and I talked for probably like 2 hours. He loves the 1UP network, and he was talking about like what he would do with Castlevania if they could do a 3D Castlevania. I mean, it was a really neat discussion, and that, like, Corey is, I'm looking forward to playing through God of War.
Or another person, Alex Ward, the guy at Criterion, came up, and I never really met him, and he
never met Alex?
Somehow I'd not
Alex
met him,
a blast.
but he's a big fan of the network as well. But he had tons of suggestions on how to improve everything, and like
of course,
yeah. So I took all his suggestions.
A lot of tech. I got a lot of tech notes from people about the site not loading.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
I said, oh, it's not working?
I had no idea.
For you? You can't?
Really? By the way, Alex, whenever you want to talk about Black 2, you know how to catch me. So just give me a call.
Yeah.
Sitting here and waiting to find out about it. I kind of like that Black game. I heard it was all right. So next time we have like a show, it'll be GDC, and I know you've been planning.
Not next time. A couple times from now.
Not next time we have. Okay.
Our next event.
Our next big event as an industry is GDC, and that's arguably larger than
3 weeks away.
Yeah.
3 weeks away.
It's gonna be big.
Coming in March.
Big.
we know Sony's going to be obviously
Sony,
aiming to make an impact.
Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, and EA all have events that week where they'll be showing things. So because of E3, the diminished importance of E3, I think you will see a little extra importance this year on GDC.
So more so than Leipzig last year, GDC going to be at least a Western Games.
It looks like it. I mean, if you go through and look at you look at the program, the panel schedule, the opportunities that game journalists are going to have to talk to people. It's going to be it's going to be a big show.
Okay, so you've been looking at that panel, that listing. What do you think give me 3 things right now that people who are listening should be looking forward to?
Shigeru Miyamoto's keynote.
Yeah.
Phil Harrison's keynote.
Yeah, those two are going to be monstrous. Shane and I have been talking about how we're going to handle the Phil Harrison keynote, and we're going to Shane and I are going to team up to live blog it together.
This is a brilliant idea. You guys came up with a really good idea.
We're not going to share the secret of how we're going to do it, but we are going to be live blogging the keynote in tandem, which is something that, like, people, when we did the Kutaragi thing while you were in Japan, people were like, go to where Shane was here to do it. Well, when Harrison gets ready to talk about whatever the fuck he's going to talk about, Shane will be sitting right next to me on his own laptop.
PS3 anywhere.
Yeah. And then what's the third one? What's the third? I'm excited to hear what Warren Spector is going to say. It's not going to be game specific. Yeah, he has a long session. He's got one of the only sessions that's over an hour. His is a 90-minute session.
Is he going to talk about his whole vision for independent?
He's talking about next generation storytelling and narrative.
Oh, cool.
So that's like his whole. I wonder if he'll talk a little bit about what he's working on at Junction Point. This would be a great opportunity to sort of sneak a few details out. Peter Molyneux.
The Austin games business, by the way, is a really fascinating place. If you haven't ever looked at really the Austin games industry, there's a lot going on in Austin. There's a great vibe there. There's people who think that, Austin is just MMOs, but there's more than just MMOs going on in Austin. There's
a ton of MMO-related panels, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to rope someone into going to all these MMO panels.
Oh, come on. Sharky's going to go for it. Sharky is our guy. If you guys read our network, you know that Scott Sharkey writes almost all of our MMO content. He plays a ton of MMOs. He still logs on to City of Heroes consistently. But
I think that if you sort of cull from all the MMO discussions, you're going to hopefully be able to see some clear lines as to where that's going to go going forward. There's some cool stuff. There's some neat, super nerdy biz dev stuff about why MMOs in Korea have models it's free, but you buy everything, and how that's going to be adapted to this market someday.
We actually just had an article about that in our news segment. So that we picked up off Business Week.
Yeah, there's stuff like that. There's a ton of big. Gears of War has a hojillion discussions being talked about.
Of course.
Cliffy B, how I did Gears of War. Jerry O'Flaherty, how I drew Gears of War.
Right.
Sound Dude, how I've scored
Gears of War. There's a lot of other stuff.
Girls of Gears of War.
But there's stuff you wouldn't expect. I mean, the composer of Zelda has a session, and the guys who made the Burger King games have a session. I mean, that's going to be interesting.
Really?
That's going to be a segment to watch out for.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be awesome.
That could be really, really awesome and really interesting.
Why do you think it could be so exciting?
Well, because like John said a few weeks ago on the show, there's nothing more mass market than a $4 game that you buy with food.
I think they're going to present a terror vision of the future where everyone's buying $4 shitty commercials.
Or, $50 shitty tech demos.
And with that,
my goodness!
What else? What else did we talk about today? That's going to be there, Aonuma's.
There's a lot of stuff.
The Elite Beat Agents guy is going to talk, which I can't wait to hear whatever he has to say. I'm listening. I'm tapping right along to it.
You like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll let you keep on tapping along here in just a moment when we come back. Luke's got an ample supply of news. He's got some rumors to debunk. Got some high-profile stuff to get out there. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Listen to GFW Radio. God damn it. Check it out at gfwradio.oneup.com, podcasts.oneup.com, or the iTunes Music Store.
All right, we're back. Luke's all fired up, ready to do news. Where do you want to start, man? This is an incredible list.
It's a big list there, but there's something that's not on the list that I want to talk about. We had a bunch of stuff that came out of DICE. I mean, you have those interviews that Shane and I or Mark McDonald and I conduct, and
you guys pulled a lot of people aside for conversations.
We pulled a lot of people aside, and some of those conversations have appeared on OneUp this week, and some of them are going to continue to appear. And some sites have just picked up these stories, one site in particular. And I hope that we don't break the traffic when you click through to go. I don't know what the site's capable of handling.
Oh, I know what they're capable of. Unfortunately.
But a website called GameStyle.net actually took an interview that we did with Phil Spencer about matchmaking, like ripped the quotes, the transitions between the quotes, and slapped that up on their website and like published that as their own story and said source oneup.com at the top. But like just because you source it, you don't get to steal the. You can have the quotes. You're welcome to the quotes. The quotes, that's fine. Enjoy them. You don't get to take the transitions too. And Garnet, like you know those guys, right?
Yeah, I know.
And so we shot him a note. Like
so at one point,
I lost my mind at the office.
You did.
Like, I was like, it was like Rumpelstiltskin.
And I vehemently defended them because, for complete transparency here, as a guy who was once upon a time working his fingers off trying to get published anywhere in the world, I did a lot of writing on GameStyle because it was a place that I could get on. I thought it was very cool. It had that European thing to it. I was very enamored with Edge and the whole let's be cool.
Garnet in the 90s is cool. We're with you.
Yeah. So and the sad part is the guy who wrote the news story was someone that we had. These guys, here's the problem. Fan sites are fan sites. And this goes all the way back to even Lowenstein and his comment when he was leaving last week. Was that last week?
Yeah. It was last week.
There's a difference between fan sites, and you know what? Video gaming has a lot. Video gaming, because it is a internet culture, has these outlets like this that are not professional outlets. So stop trying to qualify them as professional outlets. If you're lumping them in and their behaviors in with someone like a 1UP or an IGN or a GameSpot, then you're including two disparate things.
Well, so we contacted them, and they said they were going to fix it, and they fixed it today.
Yeah,
and
great fix.
The fix was to actually remove the sourcing and pull the transitions out and keep the quotes, and that was it, right?
I will say that all the GameStyle guys are still my mates, and you're still right there on my friends list and all that. But guys, come on, what the hell are you doing?
Well, it's hard to and the source of why we saw this was because the story appeared on Dig.
Yeah.
And then that was where this all found genesis.
That is true.
In Dig, we saw the story on Dig, and I was like, I wonder if that's ours. And it's like, no, it's not ours. And our story has, probably 45 or 100 digs, and this story has 1,000 by this point. And
well,
the hive mind of Dig, not so smart.
Right. Don't be petty. It's not about the individual digs on a story. Obviously, we have plenty of traffic.
But that's the only way we would see it, though. That's the only way. This
right.
Came to
That's how we saw it. I just want to be clear. That's how it came to our attention.
The deal is that something that we live by, particularly in news, is just giving credit where credit is due.
Right.
And our policy here is if we'd have pulled a quote that GameStyle had found, they would have got full attribution and we'd link to them. And it's a standard that we would like to encourage everyone to follow. Everything does end up in one of these social bookmarking sites or in a social network where the information goes somewhere. And I think it's in the spirit of social bookmarking and networking that credit goes where it's due. And in this case, within the Dig community, which is gigantic compared to everything, the GameStyle story is more prominent than the 1UP story, and the 1UP story was the source.
So for me, here's the thing about fan sites, and if you look at fan sites, I think that if you're going to do news, and to be transparent, Philip Kolar, who has done posting at Evil Avatar, has recently started doing some news posting for us. And one of the reasons is because he's done good stuff and sourced good stuff. But I like the way a fan site like Evil Avatar does their news, because they don't try to do anything other than just aggregate. They just, here's someone who knows games. Here's a bunch of posts about stuff that was interesting to us. You ought to check it out.
Oh, and Evil Avatar, to their credit too, they ask questions to fuel discussion.
They always have the tag at the end.
Yeah, it's a news aggregator, but that's trying to fuel discussion, and I think that that's a pretty admirable way.
That's always been the Evil thing. They have a really intelligent community, and they've always had guys who at the end, whoever they submit something, the question at the end is always the tagger that gets you going. Right? It's awesome.
All right, I think we spent far too much time on this.
Go on.
Ubisoft takes pot shots at publishers freezing licenses. Ubisoft's really into making new IPs. We're all waiting. Still to this day waiting for Assassin's Creed. Is that still coming this year? Was that
fall?
Still, everyone, right? Fall?
The Tom Clancy machine begs to differ with you.
So do the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Lost. Clover Studios lost.
They do CSI as well.
Oh wow, that's it. I don't even know. That game is so good though. Clover Studios lost Found as Seeds.
Yay!
Shane, happy?
I'm happy.
Did you see?
I got a couple of IMs about this week.
Did you see on the staff page though? Did you see in the background? You see it's a 360 controller.
I thought it looked like a Famicom controller or something.
No, and
in the background?
on the stat page, there's a picture, and the screen behind it's turned off, but there's a 360 controller there.
There you go where the money is.
Oh no! They said Chris Kohler over at Game Life translated the introduction. Bless Kohler, because there's no way I have no chance of understanding what that says. We are the seeds that cause the vibrant flowers, Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, Steel Battalion, Beautiful Joe, and Okami to come into bloom. So that's how they got the genesis of their name. It's found in pretentious metaphors. God of War 2 in 720p?
Of course. Oh, absolutely.
That would be beautiful.
It would be.
That's awesome. Wait.
Oh, not so fast. It's a little bit of confusion, it sounds like, in the way that the discs came out. IGN in their review said that it was going to be there was going to be you're going to be able to play the game 720p. You're not 480p, which is fine. Still, that's a lot of P. And let's face it, the PS3 probably wouldn't know how to deal with the scaling issues anyway.
And it does have widescreen mode.
Sony's going to outsource cell production to reduce costs. That's good, right?
It's faster than anticipated.
Yeah, Sony's looking for an avenue to cut revenue, to maximize revenue and cut costs. That's actually what they're doing. So that they might work with IBM.
Didn't I read some conjecture that the rest of that story was, though, that the cell development wouldn't be progressing as fast as it had been?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, you might have read that.
Who knows? I probably read it on the register, which means it has absolutely no validity.
Their yield rates are better than they expected.
Well, thank God for that.
Well, there's the PS3 is, it's the supply vice grip seems to be over.
Good.
It seems to be acquirable at retail.
I'd pay $1,200. No, I wouldn't. Actually, I don't want to say that, do I?
We're still waiting anxiously for the NPD numbers. I thought
perhaps they could call Nintendo and tell them how they're doing it.
Yeah, and Sony's doing it with new technology. And another thing that came up on our boards that I'm surprised you didn't mention to go back to, and it's something that we held Sony to the fire for before the PS3 shipped, was Sony's record with hardware. If you look back at the PS2, well, we haven't heard too much about faulty PS3 hardware, have we?
No, we haven't actually.
No, we haven't.
And that's something that I don't know.
Good on them.
I don't know how Sony can actually champion, like, hey, our system's working. But in light of what all the problems that Microsoft owners have experienced with their 360s and like all these different errors, sometimes caused by live updates.
They have some really bad, because right now Microsoft is outsourcing all of its customer support to India as well.
Did you see the thing with UK?
Horror stories of people like my brother-in-law. He just got the Red Ring of Death.
Oh.
He sent it back. He got a 360 back, which he's fairly certain is a refurb. Red Ring of Death again. Calling customer support, he says that he spent so much time on the phone with them that at one point they hung up on him.
Wow.
And then at one point he hung up on them.
That's very nice.
It's like a bad relationship.
Because you just can't understand it.
And speaking of, did you see the note that, how they extended the warranty here? I guess that wasn't universal. So our good friends in the UK at GameStyle don't get to enjoy that same luxury of having an extended warranty on their 360.
That's the sirens of the karma police whirring in the background. But it is, it's really good news for Sony that the hardware, to their credit, they've probably only sold about 1 million units in the U.S. at this point, with the NPD figures coming next week. But there's not widespread reports of failure like there were at this point in the 360's lifespan with similar sold units.
Not at all.
That's something that we expected, we watchdogged, and we bitched about, and Sony has absolutely delivered on the quality of hardware. I was going to talk about the Phil Harrison interview next, but we talked about that already, so we can move on. The Eco team is looking for PS3 developers. Shane, do you know anything about this?
Actually, in September, they were already working on this game, and what's funny is this got announced. There was an ad in Famitsu, like a kind of a vague print ad that we're working on a PS3 game. We need some people to work on it, and I had heard in September that they're already working on it, and that it was going to be an online game. So this just kind of goes
another one of those like potentially a premier developer working on a PlayStation Network game.
Was this at TGS when we were hanging out at the bar down the street from Riccardi's party?
No, before that.
Okay.
But, what's funny is people are just now like, oh, now they're just starting it. It won't be out till 2009. No, they've been working on it for a while.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tilt control's not difficult to do. Fundamentally, though, the whole tilt control thing is rubbish. It's no compensation for Rumble. This from Guy Wilday, head of Sega's recently formed Sega Racing Studio, and he's also making Sega Rally Revolution. A rally game, Rumble, did you guys miss it?
There was like GameIndustry.biz that he did that all right.
Yeah, that was over at no, this was actually Game Industry. It would have been GameIndustry.biz sourcing PSM3, a European magazine.
It's all over the place.
So you're asking if I missed Rumble and
Did you miss
MotorStorm. And
Rumble
what's
and
funny is, like, at one point, all of a sudden, while I was playing, and I was, constantly getting close to overheating, and when you're about to overheat, it makes a little siren, and I was like, wow, it should be rumbling at this point. When I'm about to overheat, it makes sense for the game to be rumbling. But I hadn't noticed it until that point, and I'd been playing for a few hours.
But folks, if Shane is saying it's in there,
but I am used to rumble when you're about to explode in a racing game, and the fact that it wasn't there, I did miss it. But to play devil's advocate to myself, the motion control in MotorStorm is really cool and does work.
Arguing with yourself is a very
wait, come on. It's really cool. It works. It's not really cool. It's a gimmick.
No, I think it's pretty cool. And like, I wish I had started playing initially with it, because I would play with it all the time. But because I started playing without it, some of the vehicles, like, here, I really can't play with it. But Ryan O'Donnell here, he swears.
I know Ryan swears by it,
because he started playing with it, and like, he's like, "Oh, you should have started playing this way."
I agree with the look John had on his face. It plays so well with the sticks, and it's so right with the sticks. Screw the stupid motion control.
To reference the second segment, Dan Greenwald, the big boss on Forza 2, is giving a presentation at GDC on the importance of rumble in a racing game.
That's strategically placed.
Quite. Shane's playing it now. You won't be playing it until April 9th. Super Paper Mario finally got a date. If a Super Paper Mario is coming April 9th, when's Metroid coming? When's Mario Galaxy coming? Later.
Isn't Mario Galaxy like way off? Isn't that the deal? So
I think Metroid is summer.
And as long as they've been working on Metroid, it's got to be like uber polished.
Yeah, I think Metroid's closer to being finished than you think.
I think Metroid will really be impressive.
When we were at DICE last week, we talked with Perrin about how it seems like it's roughly every month that the Wii has rolled out a new channel.
Right.
Pretty much one channel a month, essentially, since release. And we asked if that trend was going to continue, and she was all Perrin-y and evasive. But they did.
2 days later.
And it's everybody votes.
I downloaded it yesterday and did it, and it's pretty wacky. Yeah.
Tell me more about it.
It's kind of weird. It's you vote on these questions with two possible answers, like, what do you like better, cats or dogs, or like, which is a more romantic gift, chocolate or roses. And you give your vote, and then everyone else in your region gives their vote. And there's also a worldwide question, and then you can check back in a few days and see what everybody voted, and you can also like guess what's going to be the winning responses. And,
so it's Quizmaster Wii.
It is like Quizmaster Wii, but it's kind of fun and quirky and weird and totally unexpected.
And it's free.
It's also free.
It's free.
It takes a while to download, though, for something so small and free.
Pretty soon we're going to have, like, the, what's that? You ever been to, like, the bars where they have, like, the trivia game that plays over there?
But once again, it's...
NTN Network.
Yeah, once again, it's Nintendo, like, delivering something that I didn't know I ever wanted or could even exist that is kind of cool and quirky, which seems to be the whole Wii philosophy.
Strikes me as the kind of thing that you could sit around with a bunch of people and just sort of... Oh, let's just see what the next one is. I mean, is it
right.
a lot
and
of questions that it throws at you?
No, there's only 4 at a time, but there's also multiplayer. You can register like 6 different Miis, and the way you vote is you like drag your Mii to your answer. So it's kind of interactive, and it's a little bit like a game, and it's kind of fun in a weird way. So,
man.
Bully to you, Nintendo.
I hope that's not the kind of basics Miyamoto's talking about when he says that he wants to get back to basics in game design. Speaking with CNN, which, like you talked about earlier, I mean, you're going to get that sort of Miyamoto-level access. Miyamoto says, I think everyone can enjoy games. In recent years, I've been trying to make games that even a game veteran like me could enjoy. For example, with Nintendo DS, I try to create games that are simple with a new theme, something that can be played by 5-year-olds to 95-year-olds. One of them is Nintendogs, which is a game anyone would enjoy playing. Even in the Wii software, we have golf, tennis, and bowling, games that anyone can play. I'm now trying to get back to basics, back to the origin of video television games, and present something that people can enjoy. Okay, it's kind of. Did you enjoy the Wii Sports?
I love Wii Sports.
Did you enjoy the Nintendogs?
I respect it. Not for me.
What the hell does that mean? You respect it?
I'm not a fan of dogs. I voted for cats, and the everybody votes. And 10 cats.
I see that. I have a real dog.
So you don't actually need to pet one.
I don't need to pet one.
But when I first saw Nintendogs and I first pet the dog with my finger, I was like, okay, I get it. Like that alone is going to sell 1 million copies.
I know people that have daughters and that have dogs and bought Nintendogs for their daughters on the DS, and the Nintendog gets more attention than the real dog. I'm sure that's not what his intention was.
That's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah. Well, on to Microsoft. Did you get into the Halo 3 beta? Did you complete any of the stuff? Did you get in? Shane? Never mind. You don't play 360.
I didn't.
Oh, you guys are going to have to buy Crackdown because it's the only way you can get in the beta now. Phase 1 and 2 of the beta invites are complete. I got a little note in my email that said, thanks, not so much.
I got that note too.
Yeah, that was like, dear Microsoft, do you know who I am?
Did you play the 5 hours of Halo 2 that you were supposed to play in order to?
No, I had participated in the Phase 1 of the beta. No,
so here's the thing. It's probably waiting for our Shadowrun beta approvals to go through first so we can play that first. What's up? What's up, Mitch, who, by the way, apparently going to be on the show next week.
Oh, excellent.
So,
the whole show?
The whole show. The whole show. Absolutely. FASA studio director Mitch.
You know, whenever we announce something like this, it immediately jinxes it.
No, actually, this one is now set in stone.
Oh, okay.
There's been a bit of a saga.
Yeah, there was a bit of a saga there.
A little bit of a saga going back and forth. Microsoft, Phil Spencer in the interview that we asked him, he was talking with Mark McDonald and I, and Mark and I are big fans of matchmaking gaming. And we talked about it a little earlier with the game style stuff, but just to brush over it, this is what Phil Spencer said. As a publisher, that's our job, to take code, encapsulate it up, and ship it off to other people. Not because they can't figure it out, but because there are other things on the schedule. And if we can help other people by handing out pieces of code, pieces of technology, we should. I think what we really need to do is create a baseline for what to expect from first-party games. He's talking about what happened with Gears of War and why Gears of War didn't have matchmaking. He later went on to explain that it wasn't necessarily a design choice, which is something that we've heard actually before from Mr. Blazinski and Mr. Rain, but rather it was a time issue. But that all
it's not just a time issue,
and definitely first-party games should have matchmaking when applicable.
Just so I can do it for Mark again, because I'm shocked that Mark is out there recruiting so heavily. But if you're a quality game programmer or designer,
the sound of Shane squirting Vicks sore throat juice into his throat.
If you're out there and you know what you're doing,
Vicks sore throat juice.
Yeah.
Does Vic just leave the room?
Vic's gone now.
Jesus.
If you're out there and you know what you're doing, you might want to talk to Epic. By the way, the way I heard it is that those guys might be making a little bit of money off of the Gears of War adventure, and they're pretty aggressive. He really did say that the big thing is that
I don't understand your point. What are you talking about?
I'm so
if you know how to do anything, game programming, level design, that sort of thing, it might be worth it to you to go out and call the guys in North Carolina.
Epic's expanding.
Epic expanding. Epic looking for people. He says that the whole reason that they don't have that matchmaking is that they don't have the people. It's not money. It's not time. It's the fact that they physically cannot get the right people to get the job done.
Well, they have been, a small studio up until now, right? Just 100.
But didn't Phil Spencer say that they would provide the code?
These are great questions.
Okay, and so Mark's response to that, because I've actually been reading the Epic boards quite a bit, Mark's response to that is, how the hell do we incorporate 3-year-old code from Halo 2 into the Gears engine?
I don't know, man. That matchmaking system seems like it could still work.
Which is the other argument. Isn't the matchmaking all about databases and finding the right combinations of people? It doesn't have shit to do with your...
It doesn't seem to have jack, shit, or fuck all to do with taking cover.
An engine, right. So
just saying, it just seems like a back end. Just saying.
There's definitely a lot of back and forth here. You know what? As gamers, I'm so sick of listening to the lines being drawn. All I want is to be able to get into Gears of War, play a ranked game, get Luke and a couple of the guys together and play a ranked game and have fun with it.
You know where we might be able to play
Garnet
Gears
doesn't
of War?
want to play with us, Shane.
You know where we might be able to play Gears of War matchmaking, maybe, on the PC.
Really?
Yeah, Mark Rain said that he said to Team Xbox that it's not any great secret that they'd like to do it on PC, but for now it's a 360 game.
I heard a quote that it was an inevitability.
Eventually, we'll get around to a PC version. I just don't know.
How
when.
evasive were they on the live costing money on the PC? Did that question come up?
It did actually come up.
Oh my,
and,
that's a kettle of fish.
No, it's actually on. We haven't done the story yet, but we're going to. I swear. It'll be now. It's going to be today. It's going to be now. But one thing that we asked Shane Kim about that, and Shane talked about how live on the PC and live on the home console are going to offer similar experiences, but the expectation that a PC user has with what they get with a live subscription is fundamentally different. We pressed further on that to say, okay, so with the way that we know live now, there's a silver and a gold system. Gold you pay to play with your friends because you can expect that sort of experience on a PC with the silver version of the Xbox Live structure. Would that allow you to play over live for free on the PC? And Shane Kim said, yeah, absolutely, that's very much what we were talking about. That's like expect
bullshit.
So there's some inconsistencies in their strategy now.
Yeah.
Well, now they're saying, it's because the PC space is his language. I wish I had the entire interview in front of me. The PC space has a series of competitors already existing in it for online play.
Xfire, GameSpy, all that kind of stuff.
The console space has a series of competitors now competing in peer-to-peer.
Well, that has one competitor. Whatever Nintendo's going to do online is not competition. That's 14 digits that Perrin Kaplan was like, it prevents predators from...
And anyone remembering what their ID is.
Yeah.
You had the stunned mullet look there.
But that's what she said in the interview with Mark and I. But
they're going to soft pedal live on PC until the day that they have it ready to run the way it should have the day Vista came out. By the way, Microsoft, you're listening. It should have run this way from the day it came out. I'm sick of banging that bandwagon, but that's the way it should have been from the day it came out. And it's okay to charge people $50 a year if the culture is these are people who spend $600 to buy a video card.
I think that you're going to be able to play PC games on Live Anywhere for free.
I don't think so.
Want to bet?
Yeah, what do you want to bet?
$10.
10. What's something more fun? Drinks or something.
I would like to see, however, if Microsoft attempts to make PC users pay money for peer-to-peer online. I think that'd be really funny.
It'll Live Anywhere will abort.
When they
That'll
offer
be a stillborn.
When they offer the same functionality, which is what they need to, because right now it's a glorified GameSpy with a live slapped on it.
Right. Mm-hmm. We wondered how this was going to pan out a few weeks ago when Garnet checked out Shivering Isles, and it's like a 10-foot pole. Is it going to have achievements? 250 points. Downloadable game. You like that?
I like that. Yeah.
He likes it because he's going to get all 250 points.
But I think when you're adding to a game that substantially, that there should be. It's more. If 1,000% is 1,000 points is 100% of the game, when you add a big chunk of game, there should be a proportionate number of achievements along with it.
How much do you think that'll play into developers' decisions whether or not they actually make substantive add-on packs or not?
I think
achievements.
Yeah, by virtue of being able to offer, because doesn't that draw more people to go in and buy it?
I don't think so. No.
Is it working for live arcade games? Same sort of philosophy, in my opinion.
I don't know. The people that I have on my list that have really high gamer scores actually do play a lot of live arcade games. I don't know whether they're playing it because they like them or they're playing them because of
play
numbers.
like Open Season and Pimp My Ride for the.
Oh God, there was someone on my friends list playing something this week where I was like, "Really, dude? I know that we both have Crackdown. Why are you playing this other game, dude? Fuck getting those orbs in Crackdown. I'm done with it.
Wow,
I'm done with news too.
You know what I heard is that Halo 2 has achievements on PC.
It does. That's one of the lures.
So I think that to sort of go off on a bit of a tangent, the downside of doing that, and this is something that Microsoft is going to keep hitting with this live initiative, is that the reason achievements and gamer score and all that stuff works is because there's a common set of rules to every single game, and everyone that's online or your profile. Every time you play anything, everything you do goes towards a point that's consistent from game to game, and the rules are the same. But what's the point of achievements in Halo 2 when nothing else has achievements? And it's because it's a more open environment, the fact that some games do and some games don't, it completely negates the whole purpose, which is...
Well, but I think it brings it back to the purpose of, in this game, these are challenges that make you want to go back to play the game and look at the game differently, not competing with my friends for cred.
But achievements are more meta than that. It is a public declaration of the amount of gaming you're doing.
It is,
and within a game, I look at when we're playing Crackdown, I don't check at the specifics of what Luke's doing, but I do look at the amount of achievement points he has in Crackdown to get an idea of how we are in terms of progression through, because there's a level of completion beyond beating the game.
Right, but that's the second level, like the comparison level. But in the purest state, those achievements are for the gameplay experience for that game, not to compare with other games or to compare with your friends. It really is for these are things you can do in this game and you get rewarded for them in this game. I think you're looking at it like a more meta, like outside the box thing.
But I think a lot of people do. It's I do. Look how much I've done.
I was watching something like one of the guys on my friends list has all 500 orbs in Crackdown, and I was like, Jesus, dude, how the fuck?
Oh, you got to give him some love. Who is it? What?
It's actually Rob Dempsey from Microsoft.
That's still,
I hear he's actually number one.
Yeah, he's leading a lot of the leaderboards. He's been playing the game on retail for a long time.
Congratulations,
to hunt them out. But I remember seeing being like, oh, his achievement score went up. Oh, you got the fucking 500 agility arms.
Pretty impressive. If you want an achievement with us, you got to come by the message boards and actually leave something worth getting on the air. And don't make a post about how to get on the air, any kind of stupid crap like that. Say something intelligent.
Achievement unlocked. You've been banned.
That's not an achievement you want to unlock. That's like one of the Itagaki achievements. Oh, you've been beaten how many times in a row? Anyway, get on there. Come to boards.oneup.com. Next week, as I was talking about, we'll have Shadowrun, Spasa Studio Director, Mitch, on here. And so give us your Shadowrun questions or whatever else you want to know about what they've been up to. Until then, we are out. See you next week.